Big news. I have some important news for you.
Interesting news.
It's Blake and Darren's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
Cayman's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Good morning, Sandy. How are you?
Good evening, everyone. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, not bad for midweek.
I know.
Mid-September.
Absolutely.
Anyway, what's going on?
I know.
We got for us this morning.
Right. So this beautiful Wednesday morning,
Mhm.
we can tell you that some Cuban nationals who fled the Cayman Islands ended up in Belize. I know.
Okay.
They've been on quite an adventure. They ended up in a court in Belize, and there they told the Belizean court that they had been turned down for asylum in the Cayman Islands, which actually wouldn't be true. So I don't know why they would have said that. But in any event, the group of 14 men and 2 women were heading for Honduras, and their navigation on the little craft that they were in was probably off. So they ended up in Belize. And so Belize said, okay, well, we're going to be sending you straight back to Honduras. So they were charged with, Cuba, not Honduras. Cuba.
After all of
that. Yes. They were charged with
a break.
They were charged with being a prohibited immigrant who entered Belize not in possession of a passport. And apparently Belize is not quite as accommodating as the Cayman Islands. So they had legal representation, and essentially they are going to be deporting them back forthwith so that they can return to Cuba.
What happens to them when they get back to Cuba? Do they
probably try again?
No, do you get in trouble for fleeing the country?
I honestly don't think.
I think you just get deported. I met someone when I was in Havana.
No, Cuba can't deport you, but
no, they just get deported. Sorry, you just get deported back, and you're just like, hey, I don't know, because I met someone with my friend who's like, yeah, I lived in New York for a while, but they deported me, so now I'm back here. And we're like, oh, what are you going to do next? Get a boat and leave again.
Okay.
Wow.
They're going to try again.
Wow.
Fail once, just keep trying. Yeah, to be honest, I've never heard of Cuba actually doing anything like, putting them in jail because they tried to escape. I get a suspicion, this is just my own personal suspicion, that Cuba probably doesn't mind them trying to make a run for it. They're probably, go for it, Forrest. Yeah.
Go for Forrest.
Run, Forrest, run. All right. So 18 tour guides, or 18 individuals, I should say, have been certified as tour guides by the National Trust. So they have put on this tour guide training program, which saw 18 participants receive their certificates. So congratulations to all of those individuals. It was a 3-day intense program, according to the National Trust of the Cayman Islands, between the 3rd and 5th of August. And they had it at the clubhouse there in Dart Park, sponsored by R3 Cayman and WORC Work. And they say it's a pilot program, and they're really happy to launch it. So now these tour guides will be able to talk about things on Cayman's culture and heritage and environmental topics ranging from endemic wildlife to climate change. So sounds pretty interesting. Yep. And they were able to tour some of the heritage sites for the National Trust and the Blue Iguana Conservation Facility. Yeah, so good luck to them. That sounds like they're going to be making a positive contribution. We have the HSA making an announcement that you can now pay your bill online. Woohoo! Big things going on over there at the HSA. So they say that they've launched their online payment program. And yes, you can go check it out, payments.hsa.ky. And now it allows you to make a payment via credit or debit card using their secure certified payment gateway.
Okay, that's convenient.
Yeah, convenient. And speaking of government coming into the 21st century, did you guys hear that they're going to be launching a WhatsApp channel for government? Yeah, this is pretty, I'm like, wow, government's really doing a thing or two. So they made the announcement late yesterday morning that they're going to be launching a WhatsApp channel, Cayman Gov, to provide news, information, and guidance on topics of national importance. So no No clue yet what the does it say when the launch date is? Well, anyway, the number is going to be 938-0411. So you can certainly go ahead and save that number from now under CIG. And we'll see. Sounds pretty interesting.
I like the number. It's you get the 411.
Yeah, is it? Yeah, somebody was kind of being smart there.
Yeah. 938, get the 411. 0411. I like it.
I can remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Which means
So
information.
your news headlines.
I'm going to give out to any guys like at the bar. Hey, can I get your number?
Yeah, 938-0411.
Remember that one.
Yeah,
I know, right? So, yeah,
definitely. You got to remember it.
Yeah, definitely commit that one to memory.
All right, Sandy, thanks.
All right, guys, have a beautiful day.
Catch Sandy's show right now in 2 minutes on Bobo 89.1 FM. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7:20 for our Thursday headlines. We'll see you later.
Wonderful.
Segment with Seymour.
All right, folks. So that is Blake and Aaron over on 106. I see some of our guests are early. I see you. Just give me 1 second now. I'm going to do my best to, let me see here, to go ahead and get logged in to our online Bobo 89.1 FM. Make sure everything is clickety-clacking on that end. Now, the last 2 days, folks, my computer has mysteriously restarted very, very bizarrely in the middle of my stream. I don't know what's causing it. I spoke to Marlon, IT hubby, yesterday, and he suspects maybe it's a Windows update because it's like really weird, like the timing of when it's doing it. We don't know. So if it restarts, just hang tight because it does come up very quickly and I just have to log back in and restart. So I've got Chuck on the other end who is going to be monitoring everything for me. Our two guests in the studio, give me 1 second. I'm going to get you the links, which I will send via WhatsApp to be monitoring everything for me. For your guests to listen into the program and to also call in and participate if they would like to. So multitasking here at the moment. Give me 1 second, keeping an eye on the time. All right. Yes. Got a couple seconds here, and then we're going to be live on radio.
Peppermint, sorrel, ginger, fever grass, or English. Get it ready. Your morning tea just got hotter.
Ooh, honey child.
On the cold, hard truth. Bobo 89.1 and Cayman's #1 talk show are bringing you morning talk like no one else. Monday Rewind, Impact Wednesdays, Caribbean Connections, and much more. Don't miss a beat with what's happening in the local community. Just keep sipping your tea.
What a mess.
Here's your host, live and direct from the Cayman Islands, Sandy Hill.
All right, good morning, everyone. Fingers crossed that our stream does not restart this morning, but 2 days in a row, I've had this unfortunate blue screen of death showing up, very unannounced, uninvited guest on my computer screen. Fingers crossed that it's not going to happen this morning. No logic to it, which is kind of weird, although Marlon suspects maybe Windows updated because Windows sometimes will push through these updates that break more than they fix. So we're going to keep an eye on it. If for some reason we do find ourselves in that predicament again, not to worry. It simply means that we're going to just, we're going to restart. All right. So we got some guests joining us this morning. I've just sent them links that they can share with their listeners as well. So good morning, everyone. I got my hot tea here. Let me pull it a little bit closer to me. I got me some nice water. And I got my Cayman manners. So good morning, Marshall. Good morning, Stephen. We've got Andine joining us. Good morning. Ooh, Andine up early today. I saw your message, Andine, when you heard that Andre was going to be here. Andine was like, ooh, honey, chill. Tell him I'm coming. Felicia is locked in this morning. Tashari is here. Mr. Richard, good morning. Coley, is that how we're pronouncing that? Says, is this the station, Mr. Stephen and Beyond? Yes, it is. Welcome. Where are you joining us from? We are Caymanians. Well, we got people all over the world listening to the program, but a lot of people are Caymanians, and we're very, very big on saying good morning, as most Caribbean people, I think, are. and being about our manners. So good morning to Philip. Michelle is listening. Miss Joy has got it locked. She says good morning to you all. Charm joining us from the beautiful UK. Alice is here. Good morning, Alice. Aliano representing Windsor Park. Sarah Lee has got it locked. Trevine, morning to you, my dear. Lorette, hello. How are you? She says, morning, my Cayman family. I see you. All right. You coming to visit? Diego, buenos dias. How are you? We have Althea. Oh, joining us from London. Beautiful. Ingrid in the house. Stephanie says good morning to Andre. And we've got Clayton, Juanita, Irvlyn, of course, still vacationing in the UK. Irvlyn has taken a 2-month vacation. Jacqueline is here. Tracy Ann, Sonia, Brendale, locked in from Tobago. Beautiful country. Thank you so much. Paula representing Jamaica. Stephanie, Jamrock. Thank you. Thank you. Shamika, Kamisha. Wow. Tricia, Cynthia, Miss Iva right here in the beautiful district of Baden Town. She says, good morning, sunshine. Sandy, can't wait to see Andre this morning. And we do have other guests as well. So let us go ahead and let me grab my little cheat sheet. We've got Dolzy joining us, Maxine. Sarah Lee is in the US of A. Miss Rita joining us right here from Cayman saying buenos dias. Good morning from Jamaica. All right. What's the weather like in Jamaica? I'm sure it's beautiful. Claudine, Caribbean Sunshine says buenos dias, mi reina. Thank you. Buenos dias. Val joining from Barbados, another beautiful Caribbean island. Rose is also joining us. Trecia is joining us from New York. Absolutely beautiful. Favor from London. Oh, Irvlyn is back in the Cayman Islands. Beautiful. Cynthia, New York, represented in the house again. Rachel from Jamrock. Trisha, good morning. Miami, Clayton, thank you. Sonia says, good morning, Cayman. Waiting on Andre. Yes. Paulette, so good to see you joining us from New Jersey. Yes. Marlene, Fort Lauderdale in the house this morning. Is that Elaire? Well, we've got over 300 people on the live stream already. Keep it coming. Charlene, good morning. Maria in Florida. Merlene says, good morning, my teacher from Jamaica. Oh. Serenity Spa joining us from Grenada. Nadine is here. Michelle representing New York. Miss Margaret, Jamaica. Maxine watching from Florida. Claudette, Jamaica. Good morning. Trisha's in New York. We've got Jamaica again. I think this is going to be the show that we've had definitely the most Jamaican representation on, and we absolutely love it. Shakira watching from the US of A. Cynthia from Virginia. Sanita, sorry, joining us from Jamaica. The weather here in Jamaica is beautiful. Thank you, Steve, for the update. And looking pretty good in Cayman as well. Those storms are staying away this year, thankfully. Judine joining us from New York. Miss Sharon from Jamaica. Paulette, good morning. Nadine from Jamaica as well. Clive, Carlene. So Clive is the USA. Carlene is Jamaica. Oh my gosh. At this rate, I'll be reading names all day. Good morning, one, and good morning, all. We appreciate it. Thank you, Miss Patricia, for joining in. Miss June from Canada, representing in the house. New Jersey says love one another. So good to see you guys, all of you. Appreciate the love and support. We're almost at 400 on live stream. And don't forget, you can also find us if you're living in the Cayman Islands or even beyond. We're in Bobo 89.1 FM as well. We've got an online link for that. So welcome to all of our listeners. We've got London, New York. Miss Beulah's here. Look at Connecticut representing. Miss Vivine. Anne Marie's got it locked from Florida. Yes, beautiful representation today. So I'm super excited. If you've never listened to our program before, let me first introduce myself. My name is Sandra, aka Sandy Hill, and we do this show called The Cold Hard Truth every single day, Monday through Friday. Yes, honey child, we're right here. And, you know, we believe in this is an open and frank show. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. You just do it respectfully, and we have no problems whatsoever. Sometimes we get a little bit salty. Yeah, you know, Caribbean people, it happens. You know, there are days that we come with a little bit of spice and attitude, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So good morning. And, we've been doing this show, ironically, we're going to be talking about the changing face of media here in a second. So as we go through the morning, I'll tell you a little bit about this particular platform, Cayman Mall Road and the Cold Hard Truth. But we've been doing this show for 2 years, and the show started because of COVID. It was one of those things, folks, where we were all of a sudden in March of 2020, we found ourselves in a predicament like nothing we've ever seen before. And we were all in lockdown. It was like, OMG, what do we do? Everybody was confused. We were reading stuff. Our countries were forcing all these, restrictions on us. And it was a lot of information coming at us very, very quickly. And one of the observations that I made, because we used to do this show in the evenings twice a week, Irvin and others will remember. And one of the observations I made is, number one, the people in the Cayman Islands needed to have the information dissected in a way that they could understand. Because we would literally, thousands of us would sit down, watch the press briefings that were being done daily here in the Cayman Islands, and we had no clue what was being said. We'd walk away going, what did they just say? What do they mean by that? There were normally more questions out of the press briefings than answers. So here I am in the space of media. We have a website, caymanmallroad.com. We've got over 70, I think it's 71,000 followers maybe on Facebook. We've got over 24,000 or something on Instagram. And I thought, there has to be a better solution to try to dissect the information for the benefit of our listeners. So I had the idea to just go ahead and take the show daily. And so or twice per week, bi-weekly show went daily, and we have not looked back since then. And the most interesting thing really about it, folks, is it really put us in a space where every single morning, because I thought, we'll do it during COVID. And then after COVID, we'll just go back to twice a week. We ran into like a political cycle. So that happened. And people were just here for it. And it was not abating in any way. They were not going anywhere. And they were like, no. We need you every single morning. In fact, Irvelin, I remember when you said to me, when the election cycle started, you said to me, hey, can we still have, because we were still doing mornings and evenings until the election, campaign. And then Irvelin said, well, can we still do evenings? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of talking. I mean, 2.5 hours every morning. And then, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can handle it. And so we went to a strictly morning format, and we've not looked back. This year, in 2022, we launched the morning show on radio as well. So we do have active listeners this morning on Bobo 89.1 FM as well. So big shout out to the DMS broadcasting team who have made that possible. So let's go ahead and pull our guests in. First of all, we've got Ron in the house, and Ron is a proud Virgin Islander who is a trained reporter and communication specialist. He possesses a wealth of experience specific to news, reporting, and political analysis. In addition to his years of media training in San Francisco, he's also served in various communication capacities, such as public relations, script writing, storytelling, news, and hosting. He has a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in multimedia communications with a minor in film and television. So wonderful. Presently, he serves as a reporter and media editor at 284 Media. And in this capacity, he works closely with industry partners and stakeholders to report, anchor, and deliver updates and analysis that allows the public to witness history in the making, as well as arranging on-air interviews, delivering news, and developing content for broadcasting. So let us welcome, big virtual round of applause this morning, folks, for Mr. Ron Grant from the Virgin Islands. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, beautiful people. Good morning, Sandy. How are you?
I'm good. So good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm proud to say, folks, on the live stream, we've gone over 400. My apologies, 500 now. We're at 514. So we've got both YouTube and Facebook going simultaneously. So I have a suspicion that we're going to go well over 600 this morning. So keep on bringing it, folks. And I see all the beautiful people being represented. Have we seen anybody from the Virgin Islands yet, Ron?
They better be on because we're sharing it.
Yes, come on in, Caribbean folks. So Ron, thank you so very, very much. You have a show here. It says that you're the host of The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
So the show was really created while I was in San Francisco. I would do these researches where I realized really that at the end of the day, persons would judge men, particularly of color, by their appearance. And I simply created this platform where we're really trying to train and raise a generation of greatness, really poising young men of my generation to be able to articulate themselves, to be able to sell their products, to be able to walk into any room proudly and be able to represent themselves. So The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman is really a show poised to help guide modern day men into 21st century distinguished gentlemen. We're actually in our 4th season, and we feature young men of all ages in the British Virgin Islands.
Wow. So this is wonderful. We'll talk about that in a little bit, because I know for a fact that the space of media that we operate in has the power. We become influencers, is a term that they use, which means that we can guide discussions in our communities. We can be impactful to young people, to older people. Just a couple of days ago, I was in a local store here in a plaza called the Strand. I just walked into Freeport. Hadn't been in there in years, quite frankly. And I was having a look around, and one lady came at the back. She said, "Oh, Sandy, I heard that you were in the store. Thanks for stopping by." And she said, "One morning you were talking about this book called The Millionaire Next Door. And do you know, as a result of you mentioning it, I went out, I purchased this text, and I have been reading it." And I said, "Really?" I said, "This is fantastic." I mean, it's good to know that we're not just sitting here having these conversations that go nowhere, right?
Absolutely.
People are listening. They're paying attention. And trust me, time and time again, it is being impactful in people's lives. They're actually doing something as a result of what they're seeing the media do. By the way, let me just remind our viewers that you can call into the program. So you can join us by telephone, which includes WhatsApp. And I'm just going to put the number up on the screen. That is 345-936-2626 is the call-in number. And if you want to join us on video as well, you can also do that. So I will certainly post the link here just in a second in the comment section. So lots and lots of people. I'm just putting your comments up on the screen as you join. So we see lots of people from New York, Jamaica, Florida represented in the house. We appreciate you guys so very much. So, of course, Mr. Andre Stevens is also joining us this morning. I feel like Andre needs no introduction to the vast majority of you. But Andre, we're going to ask you to break it down for us, because in the Cayman Islands, a lot of people do know who you are, but there will be a lot of people who may have no clue who you are. So good morning, Sir Andre.
Morning, good morning to the people of Grand Cayman, and to you, Miss Hill, and to my co-host. It's definitely a pleasure being here today to discuss this issue of the changing media. Certainly, there's a dynamic shift that is happening within media world, and we'll get to that. But who am I? I am Andre Stevens. I am the controversial young man from Jamaica who speaks truth. I am the host of a series on YouTube called Unfiltered. So you can find me on YouTube on 2 platforms. You can find me on Unfiltered Jamaica. That is an issues-based platform that focuses on the issues affecting Jamaica and the diaspora. And then I have my day-to-day platform that is called Partner Draw TV. That is a local underground news that gives authentic, dynamic truth. Because many times you find that the media has a way of covering things, not just in Jamaica, but mainstream media on a whole has a particular way of putting things under the carpet. And what you're finding is that many people want to find the truth. Many people want to go to the source. Many people want to have that authentic representation of what they believe, the perspective they see. And as such, what you find is that people are saying, oh, there's a wide majority of Jamaicans who listen to me, not only Jamaica, but a wide cross section of Jamaica who listens. Uptown, downtown, in between towns. So the social strata does not limit who listens to my platform.
Right.
I was in mainstream media at one point, but I realized that being in mainstream media, I would have been caught with too many lawsuits. So I said, let me pull myself. Let me
Oh
pull
my
myself
goodness.
from mainstream media and go
Yes.
on social media platforms. I started
Okay.
my platform probably at 100 persons. And right now I can safely say of the 600 or probably 700 people who are on your platform now, I can say about 600 of them are my students this morning. Because anywhere I go, they go. They got
Yes.
notice, so they're here. Had it been evening show, I can guarantee you would have had thousands of students with you this evening. But I'm telling you, the students near and far, those in England, those across the Caribbean, those in Jamaica and the 14 parishes, those in United States of America, those are in Canada, they are with me this morning. As you know, I'm their professor. I know Miss Hill, you will join me from time to time and you will see
Yes.
my platform. So as a people's professor, I'm here today to have a resounding conversation on the issues that be.
Yes. Beautiful. And as you were talking about the numbers, one of the things that I am very, very cognizant of, you made me chuckle when you talked about the lawsuits, and we'll get to that here in a bit because we've had our fair share. And thank the Lord, we are still standing, and to this day have not paid anybody a dime as yet. But yes, the challenges will always come. But I tell you what is so incredibly interesting. We are pushing 700 people at the moment. But we have had here on CMR Live at one point over 2,400 people on the live stream, but that was during political season. And the spicier the discussion, the more people show up. So I've always made the observation that our people love sus at a different level. We really love to, and it's gossip in a way, but it's also truth telling, as Andre has rightfully said. And people appreciate the no filters component to what we do. Andre, it sounds like you take a very similar approach. Ron, it seems like you also take a very similar approach to that. Absolutely. And people like it unfiltered. I always tell people, and there are people who get, sometimes people get in their feelings. They're like, oh, Sandy, did you have to post the video of, the gunshot victims on the ground like that? And I said, listen, out of courtesy to the family members, I have blurred out the faces of these individuals, but we live in a community where everybody knows exactly who it was. And are you saying to me that this is happening in our streets where, we've had two very bad, gun-related shootings, multiple people were shot, and both of those, I think that was earlier this year, late last year. And as a result of that, I'm sitting here going, you want me to filter this? You don't want to see the truth of the crime and what's happening in our communities in terms of gun violence and how people can be sprayed with a semi-automatic weapon in the streets of the Cayman Islands, something we thought we would never see in this peaceful place. I mean, at one point we would go years and not even have a single murder. And now we have situations where people are being sprayed with a gun and 4 or 5 people shot and laying on the ground, and 2 of those people are dead. And you people want me to filter that. And, sometimes we have to push the discussion. We have to push the envelope. And even myself will say, listen, if this is what's happening, this is what's happening. If you don't want to see it and you don't want to be participating in the conversation, you have other options. You can just turn it off. You can, go read something that's going to give you nothing but comfort and make you think that the world is just full of rainbows and unicorns. But that isn't what we do on this platform. We bring a certain level of reality to the forefront. So we do have Mr. Damien Wilson for joining us as well from TCI. So let me go ahead and bring Mr. Wilson in. So Damien was born on the island of Grand Turk within the Turks and Caicos Island. And he's been the deputy director of the national broadcaster Radio Turks and Caicos 89.1 FM since January of 2021. So Damien has more than 15 years of experience in TCI media and communications industry, and he's worked in media, marketing, corporate communications, and public relations. And he's also a chartered public relations practitioner. So before moving to RTC, Damien spent the previous 3.5 years with TCI, the governor's office, as the Policy Support Media and Civil Society Liaison Manager and TCI Chevening Officer. So good to see you. Good morning to Mr. Damien. How are you?
Good morning, everybody. I am doing well. How are you guys? Can you hear me?
We are fantastic.
Pretty good.
So good to see you. So we were just talking a little bit, Damien. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your platform there in Turks.
Well, I was listening to the conversation before I logged in, and I caught you guys were talking about kind of how some people find media to be a little bit obscene sometimes, and you were talking about photos of gunshot victims, and it's so ironic that here in TCI, and you may know this, Sandy, because you guys are helping us out at the moment.
Yes.
That we just had, for the first time, had 2 double murders back to back, and
wow.
That's not something that's common in TCI, and of course, video, pictures, all of that circulates via social media faster than we can put it out, and so I mean, it makes me wonder, is it that you don't want the official media to show these things? Because social media is going to show it anyway.
Absolutely.
And so there, I always say that's where you have the societal culture and ethics coming into clash, where, is it ethical to show this? Is it not? Is it accepted within our society? Is it needed? And so as media, we oftentimes have to make those decisions in terms of content.
Yes.
But for me, my platform in TCI, for many years, I've been a strong advocate of effective communications, particularly government communications. I believe that if the public sector can communicate and engage with the general public on a mature level, then I think we can mitigate a lot of issues within society, because open and that requires open and honest communication, which we all know sometimes isn't so forthcoming from governments, because there are certain things that they do want to keep in-house, so to speak. But for me, I believe communication is everything.
Absolutely.
I consider it the sister to leadership. You can't lead if you can't communicate. And so at the end of the day, effective communication says everything.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad that you said that, because part of our job here at CMR is also keeping the elected officials honest. I mean, that could
We're
be
the fourth estate
on its own. But
it's very. Can I just make a point?
Yes, absolutely.
In the Grand Cayman and sure in the other region, the issue of 2 bodies back to back is sensationalized for you. But here in Jamaica, the reality is 2 being dead is the norm every hour. On average, 10 to 14 people die in our country daily.
Oh my gosh.
So whilst you are baffling with 2 persons dying consecutively in your country, Jamaicans are caught up with the slashing of children's throats, women going missing, law enforcers in lines of corruption, killing civilians, politicians in acts of corruption. The levels of transparencies are next to none, where politicians just do as they please, resign tomorrow, and then it's business as usual. So the scenario in Jamaica is very unique. Jamaica has one of the highest crime rates in the world. So the issue of crime affects not just some members of the Jamaican society. It affects all facets of the Jamaican society. And crime is not limited anymore to inner city. Crime is also big in Jamaica in the rural communities, because the rural communities are linked with the lottery scamming, and lottery scamming also aids to significant deaths of families, deaths of baby mother, deaths of grandmothers, deaths of wives, husbands, children, uncles, nieces, nephews. So the issue of crime has affected a lot of Jamaicans. And then that's why now you find a lot of Jamaicans saying they want to leave. So now if a Jamaican gets an opportunity to go to the Grand Cayman, they see that as a big one because it's an opportunity to have a prosperous life, a crime-free society, a better livable income. The standard of living is way better. Possibly it is more difficult in terms of maintaining their finances, but in terms of life, the standards being better for them. I know for sure when you hear a lot of them try to come and run in your country, I'm sure you have heard of those situations. So Jamaica on a whole has a total different scenario compared to the other three who are on the line today. Jamaica's situation is a particular prototype. Could be it could be said is the modern day Pakistan in the Caribbean.
I mean, Andre, it's interesting that you say that. I mean, because we have, if you know the history between Turks and Caicos and Jamaica, I mean, we have a strong link for many years where prior to Jamaica going independent, we were actually administered by Jamaica. So we shared a governor. And we had the option of going independent with Jamaica, and we voted against it. And we have a very large Jamaican population in Turks and Caicos, and ironic with these recent murders, actually segments of the Jamaican population have been accused of committing these murders, and so it creates some friction there.
Wow!
Right. So and as media, you know, you want to cover these things, and you want to you know, put out the facts so that people can understand it. And the reality is that, you know, at the moment we have a border situation where we have guns and drugs coming from Jamaica and Haiti illegally, and we know this. There are segments of the Haitian and Jamaican and local population participating in this, and so this past weekend was actually basically gang warfare where persons were retaliating against one another.
Wow.
And one of the gang members, the last two persons that were shot, was his relatives. They couldn't find him, so they went and killed his relatives.
They have a saying in Jamaica, if you can't catch Squawker, you catch him by him shot.
Yes.
So I mean, and so for us, that's a very, you know, unnerving thing, because we're not used to that level of violence. You know, so for people here, it really made persons stand up and pay attention. I mean, because it's been escalating for a number of years. It's just now that, you know, with these recent murders, it's really put a spotlight on our security situation.
Absolutely. Well, it's so interesting. It's so interesting, Damien, that you mentioned the connection, and I'm glad that Andre talked about how, in some respects, all of our islands are perhaps unique and different. We have, you know, a unique political history, perhaps a different social history, but at the same time, as Damien has rightfully pointed out as well, there is this intertwining of who we are. And of course, Jamaica having a population that's probably, you know, maybe next to Haiti, the largest in this region.
It is.
With over 3 million persons.
But Jamaica, we don't have the population like Haiti. Haiti has a population of about 11 million.
No, I was saying
next to Haiti. Yeah. That Jamaica is probably, I don't know what Cuba's population is, but more talking about Caribbean folks. Jamaica has quite a significant population. But, you know, Jamaicans are all over the world. This morning is an example. We've got people from Florida, from New York, from New Jersey representing Jamaica. And, you know, Andre has rightfully said that here in Cayman, over 50% of our population are Jamaicans. And they have intertwined in our families. They travel all over the world. looking for better opportunities. And it's not something that has just begun in recent times. My grandfather, way back in the, oh gosh, I don't know how long ago that was, but he probably came to Cayman maybe in the 50s or early 60s. He was from St. Elizabeth. So he came to the Cayman Islands. Again, he spent some time in Belize and other places looking for greener pastures. And this is where he decided to put down roots and to have a family. And, so we're all in a sense connected historically, but even in today's times, we have the connection of how the drugs are coming into our countries, how the guns are coming into our countries. They're coming normally by way of Haiti, Jamaica, and then from there, Cayman, maybe TCI, BVI, other places in the world. Andre, you know what is so interesting? I'm so glad that you're here today. And we have a large Jamaican contingent. By the way, folks, we're at 984 on the live stream between YouTube and Facebook. I suspect we'll definitely surpass 1,000 viewers this morning. But it's so crazy to me. One of the issues that I don't really struggle with it, but sometimes I think our listeners struggle with it, is anytime I talk about whether it's crime or any sort of situations that are happening and it involves the Jamaican community, people go for the easiest and the lowest hanging fruit, right? They don't want to talk about it. Oh, why are you mentioning that Jamaica has high crime? Every place has crime is the response that we always get. Oh, so we need to know that the murderer was a Jamaican or the rapist was a Jamaican. I'm like, well, if you pay attention, if he was from West Bay or he was an American or whatever, that is just a descriptive word that we would use to describe him. But people only take offense to it when we say a Jamaican. And so I have gotten to the point now where honestly, it's like water on a turtle's back. I just let it keep flowing and I don't really pay much mind because people want to, oh, well, Sandy doesn't like Jamaicans, right? Meanwhile, most of them don't know that my grandfather was a Jamaican. I'm married to a Jamaican. I have a half Jamaican child as a result of that. I'm like, what are you talking about? But they get in their feelings, Andre, because sometimes when you tell people the truth, right, they might not be willing to hear the truth. They might not be willing to accept the truth. So the next easiest thing is to try to shoot the messenger. How many times have you, gentlemen, I think, Ron, that you wanted to jump in here and say something as well, but how many times have you been in the line of fire, not because of, anything that you have done, but simply because the people themselves are not willing to accept the truth for what it is, and because you speak the truth?
Sandy, and I'm sure everybody on the call would agree, nobody shoots a deer they can't see. Okay. At the end of the day, we have all made a sacrifice in our professions to be on the front line to represent the people. And as a result of that, we will continue to more than likely always be the center of attacks, more than likely be the center of crude and profiling. But there's a bit that I wanted to say, because the British Virgin Islands is quite a dynamic and diverse place. We have persons from all across the region. And Sandy, one of the things that you mentioned most recently is the description in where someone is from. And we face that problem with media as well, whether it's Guyanese, Dominican, a Jamaican, St. Lucian, persons feel as though Virgin Islanders and BV Islanders and the media is painting non-locals or expats in a negative light by continuously making sure that persons know exactly where they're from, be it as that may, if a Virgin Islander were to be committing a crime, whatever it may be. It is also stated, there's no secret about that, but persons, while in your environment, it seems directed to Jamaicans, we have a different, situation where it seems as though once someone outside of the Virgin Islands community who is from the region, their description is named, then that community, expat community in general, continues to take it as persons in the Virgin Islands are painting expats in a negative light. One of the things that we've been facing here in the Virgin Islands, and I'm sure you guys have been privy to the information, our borders have been porous for decades, even before I was even around. I'm an 89 baby. I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm new to a lot of this, but at the end of the day, what we're seeing in the most recent activities is that our porous borders have come to light. There have been the most massive and unprecedented drug bust in the history of the Virgin Islands, and they just continue to happen. And that is now putting us on the map for what persons would call a negative light. But the truth be told, just like our colleague mentioned and so honestly articulated the situation in Jamaica, and Andre really put that into perspective. It's not something what he said and how he described the situation in Jamaica is not something that we don't know. But at the end of the day, for some reason, persons, when it comes to information and it comes to the honest dissemination of information, they just have a difficult time with the truth. So now you have a situation in the BVI where the former premier and the port's managing director are sitting in a detention center. One is sitting in a detention center. The former premier is on house arrest after being caught in a extremely massive cover-up of importation of drugs, smuggling with officials from the U.S. That then led to immediately after that COI recommendations. At the heart of a commission of inquiry, you have your premier being arrested in the United States. And a lot of that has really allowed the world to essentially see us for who we are, and our imperfections, our imperfections as a territory, as lawmakers, and even as residents. What we don't confront, we confront. And because we haven't confronted it, because we haven't confronted the violence in Jamaica or in other places, we're now being forced to confront it, whether we like it or not.
I mean,
can I interject on that point?
Yes.
Good.
One of the primary reasons why, as a region, we have not gotten it right for crime is that the commonness of separation. We only see ourselves as Caribbean people when it suits us, but we don't see ourselves as Caribbean people when we need to.
Absolutely.
The issue of the guns for drugs trade, the issue of lottery scamming, the issue of narcotics, as in the BVIs, with a premier being incarcerated because of drugs. We have never dealt with them properly. Here's the truth. What has been the Caribbean's response to dealing with the issue of crime in Jamaica, Haiti? What has been the Caribbean's response? Everybody has said, oh, we don't want a Jamaican in them territory. Oh, we don't want a Haitian in them territory. Oh, nobody's saying Jamaica has a unique product that can move the Caribbean into a different direction. The truth be told, Jamaica is the Caribbean. The brand Caribbean becomes greater when it is aligned to Jamaica. But the Caribbean is not ready to assist Jamaica in fixing its crime problem. Or is Jamaica ready to fix its crime problem? Are the Jamaican government reaching out to other jurisdictions in the Caribbean to say, can you lend us some of your resources, lend us some of your intel? Trinidad has very good intel. Barbados has very good intel. Cuba has good resources. Why don't you call on other Caribbean neighbors to say, can you help us with our investigation and intelligence gathering? No, we're not doing that. However, others benefit under the Treaty of Chaguaramas, where there are benefits to free trade and to intellectual property and to improving the social safety net of Caribbean people. But the truth is, if you don't get crime right in Jamaica, and the first Caribbean nation to have received independence, that is Haiti, if you don't find those countries correcting its ills, the social norms will not be fixed, and that is why we're seeing the evolution of crisis in the region. Because Jamaica has influence, and because of that influence, it's perpetuating in every other Caribbean country, to the point where you're saying, oh, are the Jamaicans, they might create the crime in my country. That's what is happening in Turks and Caicos, because you hear the argument is, oh, we have a large Jamaican population, and it is the Jamaicans who are creating the anarchy. So I'm going to say to us as a region, are we willing to help Jamaica fix its crime problem? Jamaicans are fed up.
Can I interject, Andre? I mean, I agree with what you're saying, because I've always said that given that Jamaica and Haiti has such large populations and they're very transitory, right? They impact every country in the region. I mean, everywhere I've gone, I can consistently say that I meet two nationalities, Haitians and Jamaicans, right? Every country I've traveled to. And that includes the U.S., that includes in Europe. I always run into Jamaicans and Haitians. And, I was even shocked. My first time in Europe, I got off the bus, and the first people I met were Jamaicans. I was stunned. I was like, wait, what are you doing here? And so I agree with Andre, because the region itself, everything is so transitory right now, where if someone is not satisfied with the conditions in their country, they'll just move somewhere else. And you find that Jamaicans and Haitians migrate more than most. And then you have the Guyanese, right? And so I always say, I'm a person, I believe in culture, right? And when you migrate, people bring culture with them. That includes positives and negatives. There are many positives to Haitian and Jamaican culture. There's also negatives. And that's with every society, right? And we have to accept that. Turks and Caicos, we have some positives and we have some negatives. And the thing about it is, I am a regionalist at heart. And I believe that if we don't start looking at issues in the region as a region, then we're not going to solve them. I find that we like to talk about regionalism, but when it comes down to action, there is no action. And because look at the whole situation with the CCJ. I mean, that says it all, right? Where most regional countries have said that we need to get away from the Privy Council, but nobody wants to sign up to the CCJ, right? And so you got to ask yourself, do we really want regionalism?
Can I just interject here? First of all, thank you guys. We've got over 1,200 on the live stream. Appreciate the love and support from everyone tuning in. Someone was asking the question about how do they join and share the live feed. So we're live on YouTube, we're live on Facebook. I'm actually going to just grab the links here now. For obviously, if you're listening, on one of the streams, and you can listen there. But I'll just grab the links and put them in the comment section so you can easily copy and paste those. We're also live on Bobo 89.1 FM here in the Cayman Islands, and that is also available on the online as well. So they do have an online option for listening to the radio there. And we had, let me just see, one of the comment came in from Moyes, who was asking, where is he from? St. Thomas, St. Joy. I think you were referring to Ron, and Ron has a very interesting accent, but he is from the Virgin Islands. But Ron has lived in Tortola. He's lived in the U.S., it seems like, for a little bit, so that accent is a little bit hidden.
So Tortola, for the guest who's asking, Tortola, which is the British Virgin Islands, but we still refer to ourselves as the Virgin Islands, as we strongly believe that we are the originals.
Okay. So let me just say this, and I do know that, is it Ron or Damien that has to leave a little bit early?
Ron, I have to step out.
You're going to have to step out, right? And there's a time difference between our countries and stuff as well. But, as both Andre and Damien were just speaking about the lack of unity even within the Caribbean. To me, it's always so interesting, because I think one of the reasons for that, we have to go back into our collective history, right? We were a dumping ground for slaves. There's some of us here in the Cayman Islands who don't even want to admit that slavery existed. We have in this particular country, because of the smallness of, we were, I think, unlike a lot of other jurisdictions, we were about 50-50, 50% slaves, 50% slave owners. we don't have a lot of, because of the topography of the Cayman Islands being very flat and what it is, we don't really have a lot of farming land per se. So it was more small scale, farming by households, little community farming. So there wasn't the push to have huge cotton plantations, huge banana fields, and, with thousands and thousands of slaves on those properties. So what you had was more domesticated slaves, if there's such a term, and they were in very close contact with the slave owners. So they may have lived maybe in the same household, or a little adjoining piece onto the household in the slaves' quarters or whatever. And so that led for a commingling of the slave owner, the slave master, and the actual slaves themselves. So that is one of the reasons why the Cayman population is quite interestingly very, very mixed. But that mixture has led us in modern times to not even accept or believe that we are the products of the entire slave industry that has affected many, many countries around the world. And so when you talk about the lack of unity, we should know that one of the things that the slave master knew to do extremely well was to conquer and divide, right? So when you brought people from the motherland of Africa, the first thing you did, if you could, was to separate them. You separated the mother from her children. So she had no reason to resist and pretty much whatever you wanted to do. You took the man, you stripped him of any dignity he may have had physically, emotionally. It was this horrible institution of separating families and bringing them to their knees by making sure that they couldn't even have a connection with each other. You forced women to bear children for people that they did not know. They were raped, is what that is in modern day language, right? There was no consent given. They were raped by the slave owners. They were forced to be raped by other slaves so that they could bore children for the sole purpose of working that plantation and making money for the industry of slavery. So,
but can I say one? Can I push back a bit? Can I push back a bit?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm a regionalist, and equally, I'm a reparations activist.
Mm-hmm.
We all know our history.
Do we agree? I question that, but not in the Cayman Islands.
We have some common understanding of where we're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. If we have a common history of where we're coming from, it means that it is now time for us to develop a further common history of where we need to go.
Yes.
So I don't think
that we do.
So I will push back to say every time as a Caribbean people we speak about the insularity that is affecting the region and speaking about the disconnect, we carry back to the whole conversation of over 200 years ago. It is now time for Caribbean people to wake up. It is now time for Caribbean people to realize that whilst we're talking about slavery and the repercussions of slavery, the entire world is moving beyond us.
Yes, for sure.
The entire world is moving in a direction, and yet we're still being an underdeveloped, we have some of the greatest resources in the region, but yet still we're manipulated. Yes. We have ended slavery, but yet still there is a manipulation of powers. Chinese interest. If Chinese interests are not there, there is the interest up north. If interests are not up north, there are interests from different facets. Russians have interest. There are so many players and actors that are saying. So now it is for Caribbean people to understand the geographical importance of the Caribbean. And in understanding the geographical importance of the Caribbean, we will know the resource of wealth we possess. And therefore, when we're at the bargaining table, Mayor Motley said it at the last COP meeting, the Caribbean needs to know its place. The Caribbean needs to know its significance. The Caribbean region does not understand the geopolitical significance. That is why we're manipulated. That is why we are underdeveloped, and that is why we're surely getting nowhere. And for me to sit down to hear people all the time, Sandra, saying, it is the issue of slavery, why the Caribbean can't be better off. To hell with it. We know our history.
Yeah.
We know where we are coming from. And it is now, it is, Marcus Garvey has said it. Marcus Garvey, people who knows nothing about themselves is twice defeated. We know we're coming from where we need. So time for us to sit at this time for Trinidadians, it's time for Ghanaians, it's time for Barbadians, it's time for Jamaicans, it's time for BVI, Turks and Caicos, all of the Caribbean region to sit at the table and have an honest, fulsome discussion.
Yes. But let me say this, Andre. Yeah, let me say this. Believe it or not, I don't know about every single Caribbean country, but we do not even in the Cayman Islands celebrate emancipation. Hello. Excuse me. We had this discussion, when was it, last month or the month before, when everybody else was celebrating emancipation. We stopped celebrating emancipation in the 1960s, and we had to ask the question, why? Because we are not willing, and again, this is perhaps the uniqueness of every single Caribbean island, but here in the Cayman Islands, we have an unwillingness to accept our history for what it was. Now, as a result of bringing that conversation to the forefront, the Premier reached out to us, the Premier of the Cayman Islands, Honorable Wayne Panton, and said it was something he had been thinking about. We hadn't heard there was no statement on it. There was nothing. We have a caller who's joining us, but there's absolutely nothing here in the Cayman Islands on this point. And as shocking as that may sound to you all, that is the history with which we here are having to live with. The fact that we have a very whitewashed history and we're not willing to accept it for what it is. Caller, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the line.
Good morning.
Good morning, Danny.
I look forward to the day when Caymanians will attain, will shake off the mental slavery that we still retain. And we will have the courage to talk about the issues that need to be talked about. One of your guests mentioned the Caribbean Court of Appeals. That's a discussion that we need to have about the differences between the Privy Council and the Caribbean Court of Appeal. What are the differences? That's a discussion we need to have. I'll listen to the rest of the program.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take care.
All right. Ron did have to go. We'd like to thank Ron for coming on the program. Thank you guys so much. I'm reading a lot of your comments and I'm just putting them on the screen. Some of them I will, if it's a question, I'll actually bring it up. So we do have Eden who's joining us this morning. Good morning, Eden. Eden says, good morning. Do you value the media, free speech, and your ability to comment and speak out? Then help defend free speech in Cayman. And there is a link there. Eden, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about that. I'm not really sure what that's in relation to. Let's talk. Andre touched on it a little bit. And Damien, I don't know if you've had an experience in this area, but let's talk about how media, the name of this show is The Changing Face of Media. And first of all, let me just say, in case you guys have not noticed, the gentlemen that have joined me this morning, all are of a particular look, Caribbean men. And have we taken control of media? Because, here in the Cayman Islands, we've had the traditional, we've got a paper here called Cayman Compass. They've been at it for 40, 45 years. When CMR started 5 years ago, we're only at this for 5 years, we were considered disruptors in the industry. We were, the bastard child of media. Don't listen to them. Don't pay any attention to them. They're spreading misinformation and lies and whatever. And at some point there was a shift where all of a sudden the powers that be, if you will, started to really, really pay attention. So much so that I recall a story a couple years ago where a young lady who works in one of the larger organizations on island, larger meaning financially, they're well positioned, right? And she said that there was a report that came out by Tower Marketing. Big shout out to Tower Marketing. They do a consumption report every single year now for the last couple of years, where they ask people, what are you reading? What newspapers are you reading? You know, what talk shows are you listening to? And then they will put out information like this, where it'll say preferred talk shows. There's Cayman Mall Road in the number one spot. They'll look at it based on education. They look at it based on nationality. They'll say, what websites are you reading? What are you paying attention to? So for the first time several years ago, we came into like that number one spot, right? Most visited website, Cayman Mall Road. If you ask people, where do you go for news? Everybody's like Cayman Mall Road, unprompted. And this lady said to me, I was in a she's Caymanian. She said, you know, I was in a meeting with these corporate individuals, mostly, you know, expats. Some of them may have acquired Cayman status. And she said, oh, we've just got the new consumption report from Tower Marketing. And it says here that Cayman Mall Road is like the number one, you know, in the number one spot for a visited website after another website called EK Trade, which is a classified, you know, selling goods and whatever. And she said, everybody in the room, you could hear a pin drop. Everybody stopped and they're like, what? So, you know, she picked up the phone and called me and she said, now people are going to listen to you because an independent source has said you're the people to listen to. And I chuckled to her and I said, you know, the funny thing is I didn't need anybody to tell me that, but it's nice that they're willing to acknowledge it. And now, you know, things have changed, I guess, somewhat as a result of that. Tell us a little bit about your individual journeys, Andre and Damien. Andre, it looks to me like you have probably started in a little bit of an untraditional way. I see people referring to you as professor. That seems to be your thing. How did you get started in this space?
The truth be told is, are you hearing?
You're coming in a little bit.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, I think your internet was a little bit shoddy.
Hear me now?
Go ahead. Yes.
The truth be told is, Jamaicans have been demanding change.
Mm-hmm.
Jamaicans want truth. Jamaicans want fairness, equity, transparency.
Mm-hmm.
And for years, we're 60 years old as an independent state.
Mm-hmm.
And for years, we have suffered with finding out the truth, being told the truth, getting justice, equality, and fairness. And a justice system that is equal for all, not because of your status, class, or creed. Now, I came in at a time this year when many Jamaicans are apathetic. Even the polls have told you in Jamaica, the political apathy in Jamaica has increased significantly. Now, with mainstream media being the platform that a lot of people use to get their news, when bloggers in Jamaica come out and speak, more Jamaicans say, I want to hear that. People in the diaspora say, I want to hear what that person's saying. So when I came on the scenes, as one of the bloggers said, the new kid on the block, I came on the scenes fresh, new, and different because I wasn't coming up with called fre. I was just speaking hardcore truth and facts. So I filled that void that many Jamaicans see, or they're saying, boy, this coming like a new Marcus Garvey. Boy, this man coming like a new Moses. Boy, I'm gonna step, because everybody's saying, Andre, they fear for my life because the things that you're saying, many times politicians in Jamaica will use their underground links and eradicate you. But then the Bible says you must be what? Wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. So I speak facts, I speak truth, I show my vulnerability. I show Jamaicans I'm just like them. I let them know the issues affecting them. I highlight to them how these issues will affect them and their livelihoods and their futures. How the issue of the national NHT is affecting how many civilians. How the government of Jamaica is changing the National Housing Trust. Privatizing the National Housing Trust. How the National Housing Trust will affect civil servants, disabled people. These are things the government of Jamaica is doing. How the government of Jamaica and the police force is very corrupt. The amount of gang members align themselves to the Jamaica Constabulary Force is alarming. And the gentleman from Turks and Caicos said it earlier. And I said to myself, I wonder if I should have said it. Whilst Jamaica was going to become independent, the Turks and Caicos said them not taking the independence. So I now want to wonder if British Virgin Islands never take the independence, Turks and Caicos never take the independence, and Cayman's somewhat is in that scheme. Apparently, it appears that everybody who is still aligned to Britain is better off. So it's now I wonder to say, would Jamaica still be better off had we stayed under the regime of the Queen? That's a discussion we can have. Would Jamaica be better?
No, go ahead, Andre. Finish your thought.
Would Jamaica be better off had we kept the Queen? Because if the BVI and the Turks and Caicos are better off, if the Grand Cayman is better off, it now begs the question, should Jamaica have stayed under the Queen's regime?
Very interesting.
Can I chime in on that?
Sure.
And I want to just give my observation before I turn to Turks and Caicos to the rest of the English-speaking region, right? Former British colonies. When you look around at the region, right, at all of the former British colonies, you find that they all are in some kind of trouble. Now, I'm not saying that being a British colony makes you better off, right? There has been some stability, but in Turks and Caicos, we look at independent countries and we envy their political independence, right? Now, at the end of the day, I am a firm believer that everything rises and falls on leadership. Can we say that Caribbean leadership has done its job? And in my personal opinion, the answer to that is no.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? Caribbean leadership continues to fail Caribbean people.
Yes.
And that's whether you're independent or British territory. I firmly believe Caribbean leadership has failed us for decades.
Yes.
I believe that Caribbean people could be so much further.
Yes.
You know,
and perhaps the only difference really is that when you're under the British rule, they are able to keep you in check a little bit longer.
Honestly, if we admit it, right, and I'm going to admit, Turks and Caicos, we've had our second commission of inquiry in several decades in 2009, right? And the British came in and said that, you know, there was corruption going on, blah, blah, blah. We still have a corruption trial that it has become the most expensive trial in the history of the world, right? We've now spent over $100 million on this.
Wow.
Prosecuting former politicians, right?
Oh, God.
Including the former premier and deputy premier. Right? At this point, I think most people don't even care if they were guilty. They just want to stop the bleeding in terms of the finances. All right? And so I honestly believe that as Caribbean people, we have not kept Caribbean leadership in check. We have this thing where we vote people in and then turn our backs, and we only go back to them when we want a handout. And I've always said that Caribbean people got to stop wanting handouts and start wanting hand-ups. I don't want you to give me $10,000. I could care less. I literally said that to a politician. I don't want your money. You know what you could do for me? Create an environment where I can support myself. That's the only thing I want you to do. Do your job.
Because you'll be able to earn that tenfold, 20-fold.
Exactly. Just do your job. Because if you can give me $10,000, what are you keeping for yourself? Nobody's going to give you more money than they're going to keep for themselves. Right, and I think that
politicians don't give you anything. If they give you $10,000 somewhere in the back room, they're taking 50.
And in most cases, it's your money they're giving you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, and we've been fooled by. I ran as an independent candidate in 2016 in our general elections, and most people in Turks and Caicos know that I have never been a political party person. I've been asked by both political parties over and over to be a candidate, and I've turned it down. And that's because I do not believe in political parties. Right? I believe the only thing political parties in any country serve to do is to keep people ignorant and keep themselves employed. And that is how politicians win elections, right? Even here in Turks and Caicos, we have politicians arguing for independence. And I said, anybody who's going to tell you you need to be independent without telling you need to be educated is tricking you. They only want power. They don't want your freedom.
With no controls, yes.
Exactly. Because if you don't educate people about the pitfalls of independence, I am pro-independence. But would I vote for independence right now? Hell no.
Yeah. No, it has to be done the right way. And might I say, Andre, to your point about this question, and I guess it's one that you can never really fully answer, but just to delve into it a little bit more, of whether countries that have gone independent, such as Jamaica, would have been better off under British rule. I think the real question is what happened on the journey to true independence. So what we saw, for example, and this is something we know, is that when Jamaica went independent, the British Empire did certain things to certain industries in Jamaica, including the Jamaican banana exports, where they basically decimated those industries to bring Jamaica to its knees. So the mother country,
it wasn't just the UK, it was the US as well.
Yes. But my point being that, when we talk about colonialism and, the mother country having her best interests at heart, that is normally not the case. When your interests as a dependent country clash with that of the mother country, they will cut you off at the knees and not think twice about it. We see that even here in the Cayman Islands with our financial services industry and some of the constraints that have been placed on us, but they won't even place that on their own country, So Jamaica's history, to independence is what it is, but it hasn't been one where everything was within the control necessarily of the Jamaican people, including the Jamaican politicians. There were exterior forces that had a hand in it that really had no concern about Jamaica's success. And one could easily argue that the opposite was happening, where they were purposely meddling in industries and doing things that really brought additional criminality, additional negativity, additional corruption to the shores of Jamaica as a country. Now, I'm saying that, but ultimately we, the people, have to take full responsibility for what is happening within our borders and within our country. So I don't make that comment to try to displace any accountability or responsibility. We always have to be responsible for what's going on in our own houses.
Yes, that's true. And I'll go a bit further. Even though these sanctions are possibly sabotage were taking place, one thing for sure is that Jamaica, and by extension the region, has not been strategic on the way forward. In the heart of war, the way you win a war is through strategy. Remember, there are other trading blocks across the world that would do well with our bananas and commerce and trade. Had Britain done all it wanted to do to create sabotage for Jamaica, Jamaica should have established other trading partners immediately with Africa, with Asia, with other areas of Europe, with other areas of South America and the Americas, North America. So the truth be told, even though there are sanctions, for instance, look at Russia. Hasn't Russia been sanctioned by many countries right now? But Russia is still surviving, aren't they? Because they have a major trading partner of the Chinese.
Right
or wrong. So if there are other bricks, there are other facets, there are other blocks, trading blocks in the world, it simply means that you go back to the chess game and you create different strategies of winning the war. If Britain doesn't want it, somebody else wants it, because here's what Jamaica produces have some of the best potency. Jamaica produces have some of the best agriculture, best nutritional value. So the truth be told, Jamaicans once more lost the opportunity of being strategic.
Yes.
If you are strategic, you can win the war.
Yeah, but go back to what Damien said, Andre. Let's go back to what Damien said, because Damien made an important point. He said it all starts with education. Even now, as elected officials, politicians are saying in other jurisdictions, oh, let's go independent. He said you cannot do that without making sure that you have an educated populace. And so you mentioned the art of war. You mentioned, sorry, that's my Alexa in the background trying to tell me something. I have to ignore her. But, if our people are not educated, what do they know about strategy? What do they know about negotiations? What do they know about looking at, in this industry, content creators, we talk about multiple streams of revenue because somebody has to pay the bills for what we do, right? If people don't know those things and they don't understand those things, how far will you get?
I'm going to respond to that. The truth is, the major players on Jamaica know what needs to be done. But the truth be told, is many of them are in the pockets of players or actors in the world. For instance, the Jamaica Foreign Minister recently ended a campaign to become the Commonwealth Secretary General. That was a monumental error. But then you would have wondered, who would have pushed her, who would have pudged her to want to become the Secretary General of the Commonwealth? If you look at the players or the actors who forced her into being the puppet, who were the puppeteers behind the puppet, you would have realized it's our former colonial masters who said, this one can be maneuvered. So the truth be told is, we don't necessarily need to have the most brilliant of people, but there's something called common sense. And everyone, even the man who does not have the capacity to read and write, has common sense to know what is right and what is wrong. What is beneficial. I'm going to say something to you. Go in the streets and talk to a madman. And say to him, say, me go give you some food. And if the madman says that the food is wasted, the first thing I'm going to say to you, oh, you're coming to give me dirty food. So him know right from wrong, good versus evil. So those who have, many of our politicians are well lettered, well read. Many of them are at Ivy League universities. Many of them are at certain levels. They should be at a level to do international negotiations in the interest of Jamaica. But it's never in the interest of Jamaica. It's always in the interest of their pockets. And that is where I want
you have hit the nail on the head, Andre. That is the problem with the region.
The power of the vote. A lot of Caribbean people don't understand the importance of their votes. Many parliamentarians and many politicians buy them for 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, the most 20,000 in Jamaica. A lot of politicians in Jamaica align themselves with dons to carry out the votes on election day, to align the people and misalign the people to represent the views of their good. So when I'm going to say to you, right, there needs to be an arousal of the social consciousness. And that is why you have the new face of media, being Andre, being you, being the gentleman here in Turks and Caicos, because the people needs their social consciousness to be awoken. The essence of teaching is repetition. Can you imagine across the Caribbean region, you have 100 regionalists from different facets of the Caribbean, speaking in their platforms day to day, speaking on how we can implore and make the region be great. Can you imagine how politicians in the region would be kept on their toes and you understand? So I am saying to you, I have made a call out recently to the bloggers here in Jamaica. The truth is, many of them are not well read, but they have influence.
Right.
If they do have influence, as I said, the essence of teaching is repetition. Over time, with the reculturalization that I would put them through, with the discussions and probing and scoping, can you imagine how on-the-ground reporting can change the face of media and journalism in this country?
And it has, believe it or not, you know, that's one of the reasons why we're even having this show, talking about the changing face of media. It has had an impact, right? So the way in which we deliver news,
I cannot just point out one issue.
Yes.
Recently, this is how you heard about Andre. Recently in Jamaica, there was a case where a young lady is involved with a policeman. And the young lady missing out of thin air. The policeman was the last person to have seen her. Had I not taken the case and aired the case on the 13th or 14th of July on my platform, that man would not be locked down. There wouldn't have been a court case. It would have disappeared like thin air. It would have disappeared like thin air. And I am saying to Jamaica, had it not been for my platform and other journalists, not journalists, other bloggers like L.A. Lewis, Dr. Love, Jamaican Carlos, he wouldn't have been locked up. And I am saying the police went as far as call us a media circus.
Yes.
Had the media circus not put pressure on the law enforcement, they insulted us and called us a media circus. And had not been for the media circus,
where would we be?
We still haven't found or identified.
Let me pause you right there, Andre, because this is so interesting. And, you know, here on Cayman Mall Road, we have experienced this, like I said, in the early days as well. They refused to acknowledge us as media initially, wouldn't give us media passes. The previous government wouldn't invite us to events. They were still sending us press releases because they saw our reach and wanted us to get their news and their information out there. But they were refusing to really bring us in fully. And it's so interesting. You talk about the terminology that the establishment, the politicians, the police, whoever will choose to use to describe you, to try to make you, in the eyes of the public, less than, right? So you said they referred to you as a circus. In our case, you know, we have been labeled, they thought it was an insult. So I guess Cayman's a little bit more proper, I don't know, to call us bloggers. Oh, she's not really news media, she's a blogger. And I put to them, I said, since you want to use that terminology, what is a blogger? Nobody could answer it. Because the same people who are sitting down calling us a blogger are, you know, 50, 60 years old. They don't even know what that term means.
You want me to be honest here, Sandy? Let me interject.
The show is called The Cold Hard Truth.
Right? The people that sit at the top in government and in the business sector have no damn idea about media. Right? I'm just going to be frank. I've sat down for many years and said, these people are as dumb as a doornail when it comes to media. No insult to them. It's just facts. Right? And you try to explain certain things to them and they don't see the importance of it. They don't understand it. I mean, even with us being the national broadcaster of the country, you try to explain to politicians that, okay, I got your press release, but let's do an interview instead. They don't see the importance of doing the interview. Oh, but I sent you a press release. No, the press release is your opinion. The interview is where we will get the facts. Right? And you try to show people these things. I myself, while doing press conferences, right? So I'll log into a press conference because with how media is changing, you can do a press conference virtually. So we'll log into a virtual press conference that's being live streamed. And on the stream, you're asking questions, and the public is, why are you asking the minister that question? Oh, you should be fired. And I'm like, what the heck is it? People are literally cussing you for doing your job.
Wow.
Yeah, because there's an established status quo in the region that once you're a leader or a public figure,
you shouldn't be questioned.
You shouldn't be questioned. You shouldn't be open or challenged publicly, because according to them, God elect the leaders and they're there to serve, and you're not supposed to question. A lot of people really live in these. A lot of people are still in those delusions, living those delusions, a lot of them are.
They persuaded the public to believe this as well.
Yes, Tracia says, wait until election time, see how they will use the media circus to get polls.
Exactly. This is one of the things I have complained about personally as a young person in media, is that you're often sometimes dismissed and ignored until election season. And then everybody knows your number. Right?
Absolutely.
And leadership for me needs to be held to account across the region. I honestly think leadership across the region is failing us. And when you say things like that, I've said things like that on shows and in press conferences, and people have gotten upset. But it's my firm belief. We can do better as a people. And I think that this is why, as a region and as individual countries, we continue to go down this road. And we're just repeating this one cycle over and over and over. And I'll share a personal story with you. I remember, because how I got into media, I actually did engineering was my first love, and that was my first degree. And after doing that, I used to do a lot of street meetings as part of a youth group, right? And so one night, one of the radio station managers heard me, and he was like, "Hey, you ever thought of doing media?" And I was like, "Media? Why the hell would I do that? I just finished engineering." And he's like, "No, you should do media. You have a great voice for it." And anyway, for months he kept on calling me, and one day he said, "How much money do you make?" And I told him, and he's like, "We'll pay you more money." And I left my job at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. I was at the radio station, and I did a morning show for 6 years after that. And I can remember one day I was doing a show where I was criticizing the government about education and some other stuff. And just as I walked off out of the studio heading home, a friend of mine that worked in a particular office in government called me and said, "You're getting fired today." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, you're getting fired. You upset somebody. They up there talking about you. The minister mad. You shouldn't have said what you said, and you're going home."
Wow.
Right. And hold on, let me finish. And so my manager called me in that afternoon, and he was beating around the bush, and he said, and I said to him, I said, "Listen, I know what you called me for. You can just go ahead and do it, because I have no fears or anything like that." And he was like, "What did I call you for?" I said, "Well, a particular individual called you and told you I need to be let go." And he said, "Yes, but here's what's going to happen." And we came up with a different idea. And so when I went back, I was off air for 3 weeks. When I went back to work, and this is a story I've told openly in Turks and Caicos. Why? Because it's the truth. A lot of political persons have attacked me over it, but it's what happened, And so I went back to work after 3 weeks, and persons were calling into my show and saying, "Why were you off the air?" And I jokingly said, the government tried to fire me. And when I looked, my mobile phone started ringing. There were numerous persons calling me. And so my manager, after I got off the air, was like, "What the hell did you say?" He's like, "The PS is calling, this one is calling." And I told him, I said to him point blank, I said, "Listen, calm down. You need to decide and understand the power you hold as media."
Yes.
I said, two things are going to happen. I say, either they're going to fire me and fire everybody, and then there'll be an inquiry as to why you fired persons and what happened. I say, and no government wants that, because that's only going to bring attention to them. I said, or the other thing that will happen is that they will just leave you alone and make you look like a nut.
Yeah.
And that's literally what happened. They just left me alone from that standpoint. Now, over the years, I've said a lot of things that a lot of people didn't like, and I've taken a lot of licks for it, and I keep on saying it. And even recently with this current government, a lot of persons will say, aren't you afraid to ask the minister those questions? And I'm like, no, somebody has to ask them. And I had one minister say to me, Damien, I know whenever you're coming to a press conference, I have to prepare because you're going to ask me something that nobody else is going to ask.
Yep. Okay. So we have Jeffrey Tavares, who's also joining the program this morning. Good morning, Jeffrey. Go ahead and do a quick introduction of yourself and your platform.
Good morning, lady and gentlemen. Andre, I am Jeffrey Tavares from Make We Talk Roots 96.1 FM. And I can say what the gentleman was just speaking about the government calling. Let me say something to you. The Minister of Misinformation in Jamaica, Robert Morgan, former Ambassador Curtis Ward, was speaking about the whole thing with Camilla Johnson Smith that Andre was talking about earlier on. Because it came on my program where former FBI agent Wilfred Radigan, who's also an attorney at law, brought it to my attention about the $40 million of taxpayers' money that went down the drain, and where the minister herself got a photographer from Belgium to fly all the way to Nigeria to take her picture. Now, what Nestor Morgan did was to call Roots 96.1 FM and said to them that, mark you, the press release that was put out wasn't put out on Roots, It was put out on my personal platform. But he called Roots FM to say that he needed to clarify what was put out by Ambassador Ward. He came on the radio station and started saying that the ambassador is a fake ambassador. He wasn't an ambassador for Jamaica or anything. So I picked up my phone and I called the Jamaican consulate in New York. And I asked, was ambassador an ambassador for, from this time to that? And they said yes. You know what he did? He went all over the place trying to find out who I am. Why am I on the radio talking about this? He went as far to a family member of mine in Parliament. So that is to show you the level where these so-called politicians will go to stop people like Andre Stevens, the gentleman there, myself, and you, Sandy.
Yes.
So it
well, we've definitely we've definitely had our fair share of it. Like I said, they tried the lawsuits first. That never really worked out. And as a matter of fact, the last person who ended up suing us, we just a couple months ago finally resolved that, and it turns out he owes me money now for legal fees, which he has made it quite clear that he has no intentions to pay. But the judge ruled, in our favor once we actually lawyered up. And the irony of it is every single thing we said about the man was true. But they try to scare you through these tactics. They figure, okay, you're just a blogger, whatever. You're not going to have the money. You're not going to have the deep pockets. And we'll sink you with lawsuits. And that's, what they attempt to do. And thankfully, so far, at least I can say in this country, the judiciary has worked. And even from the political front, Damien was talking about the political pressure, how they wanted to fire him. We had another talk show host here in the Cayman Islands, Mr. Woody DaCosta, who was fired from his job. He was fired as a talk show host after he'd hosted the show for many, many years. When Compass Media purchased Hurley's, and they purchased with it, a morning show. I forget what it was called now, but the people allowed their voices to still be heard because they stopped listening to the program. So after Woody got fired, they boycotted it. They said, we're not going to listen anymore. Ratings tanked. The owner of Compass Media brought in his sister. Unfortunately, she couldn't save it. They brought in another young lady. She couldn't save it. And eventually they had to cancel the show.
Wow.
And I understand from my inside sources that show was actually, the morning show was making them a lot of revenue, lots of money that now they have lost because they decided that he was too much of a political liability that they had to end up getting rid of him. Let's read some of our comments. I do see, sorry?
You know something? It is people like Andre Stevens, myself, and other bloggers in Jamaica, you know, because Andre was speaking about the Donnelly Donaldson's case. When Andre came out about it, I got a call pertaining to it, and I called up Wilfred Rattigan and I said, "Listen to me, this can't continue. It can't. It cannot sweep under the carpet. We got to come out and speak out against it." And until this blessed day, the Prime Minister of Jamaica says nothing about it, you know, not one single word.
Wow, shocking!
Not a word. The Prime Minister of this country said nothing about what is going on with that
Unbelievable.
case. Because of course she's not a family member of the upper class in Upper St. Andrew or Cherry Garden or the people of the Vumvavon, the Vumvavi.
Yes.
You know?
Unbelievable. Let's get to some of our comments. I can't read them all, but thank you guys so much for tuning in this morning. We do have Steve who has joined us. So if you see the URL that's on the bottom of the screen, if you want to join by video, you can do so. So let me just see. Steve, good morning. Are you intending to speak with us this morning?
Yes, good morning.
Yeah,
good morning
to you,
everyone. Good morning to everyone.
Morning.
I want to say Andre is who we call our professor on that Partner Draw TV show. And we are very well taught and we learned very well. So I want to say that it's because of Andre why all these things that you're hearing about is on the forefront right now. Because even the Donnelly situation, like that gentleman said a while ago, the government says nothing about it until today.
Wow.
You know, and this is one of the things we are really scared for, because if things like this can happen in our country and the government, nothing is being done, not even to visit the family, nothing. I mean, this is like a shame on the country. And all we as people need to do is just to unite, because even when Andre is having the what we call protests, I believe that in every parish, person should be out protesting. Who can't be where Andre and the other crew is. Stay in your own parish and come out and protest just the same. So that they know that we know what is happening and we are not gonna put up with it, and then they need to step in and do what they need to do. Even take the case with Chantel. Is Andre is the one again highlighting it just the same. So these things are keep happening and the government doing nothing about it, and they are there for us.
If I
Well,
may, Sandy, if I may.
Yes.
You know what happened in our country, and I think Andre can back me up with this one. The media houses in Jamaica are in the pockets of politicians, you know. So if they don't want, they will not come on and say X, Q, Y, Z, you know. They will not come out and ask the question that Andre Stevens or Jeffrey Tavares would ask. And the corruption stinks to the highest heaven. So when you have media houses in the back pockets of politicians, the people will not know the truth. It's the same thing with the police statistics. Do you believe, or do you think that the Commissioner of Police is giving the people of this country the right numbers when it comes on to murder in Jamaica? No, they're not. They're lying about it. They're cooking it up. And they will not come out and speak the truth of the level of criminality that is going on in our country. And how do they expect the police to do their work when the police are underpaid? The American government, hold on for me, the American government give Jamaica, the Ministry of National Security and Justice, the tune of $2 billion Jamaican dollars a year. How much million US dollars? And yet the police force, they don't have any ballistic vests, they don't have any shoes, they don't have any uniform, they don't have any cars, and officers are going home with only $70,000 a month.
How much is that in US? Translate that for us.
500 or 600 US.
Wow.
But I'm gonna say, can I say this to you?
Go ahead.
Can I say this to you? I think what is happening in Jamaica is, I've been saying it for some time now. You have limited resources, but you have plenty of people. And if you have plenty of people, it means that you're going to be fighting for scarce benefits. The truth is, the time Cayman Johnson Smith was in Kigali fighting to become the Secretary General I believe Camilla Johnson-Smith could have used that $40 million to start a campaign across the world to set up Jamaican towns in every nation. Do you hear what I'm getting at? The truth is you have 3 million people, but you don't have enough resources to fend for them. Therefore, I believe that the government of Jamaica should have been on a campaign to expatriate at least 1 million to 1.5 million Jamaicans over a decade or 2 decades. If you do that, remember you'll be set just, I remember I said you must study your history so as to develop strategies. This is what the Chinese do and set up Chinatowns across the globe. Agreed? Jamaica is a global phenomenon. Everywhere you go, the brand Jamaica sells. The good, the bad, the ugly, everything about the brand sells. Therefore, why can't the government of Jamaica do a mass expatriation of Jamaicans across the globe? Imagine if you set up a Jamaica village in every major town or city across the globe. That means 20, 50 Jamaicans going abroad and setting up in regions and areas. And then over time, them come back, because Jamaica grow basically of remittances. So therefore, if the remittances are reducing, you need to find a way to keep it up. So what you keep is then, if you have 1.5 million people to govern, it's better than 3 million. It means that your health sector can take them on. It means you can have free education. It means if a police is getting 70,000, he can get 200,000 over time in another 2-5 years, because you don't have the level of people to govern. So the issue that the government of Jamaica has not done well is find strategies for the people to govern. And one of the ways to govern the people is to send them away, send them in new provinces. That is what has worked for many other island states. It can work for us too.
But let me ask you a question in relation to that, Andre. If you send your people abroad without the resources to be able to start up, because one thing with the Chinese is when they go abroad, they either have resources or they quickly create them, and they become the mom and pop shops, and they start importing, their cheap Chinese goods.
So therefore, that's what I am saying to you. The government, Sandra, the government would invest in the people, give them the resources to start up. Just as how you say a prosperity plan, give them the resources for the first year or 2. Send some artisans, send some farmers, send some dressmakers, send this, send that, and you put them in a small village, send some chefs and let them create a Jamaican experience. I'm going to say this to you. Jamaicans don't need a lot to survive, They just need the basics. And if they get the basics, you'd be surprised at how they can survive.
All right.
Because the DNA of Jamaican.
Let me take a commercial break because we do have some bills here to pay on the program. So let's go ahead and take a quick commercial break. So big shout out to the Cayman Islands government and the census, which was completed last year. You guys might find this particularly interesting.
The population of the Cayman Islands is dynamic, diverse, and growing fast. Since the 2010 census, we have added more than 16,000 residents and almost 7,000 new households to our islands. This means that in Census 2021, around 71,100 persons call the Cayman Islands home. More people than ever live in high-density apartments, which grew by 44%. Home ownership increased by 20%, and 54% of households are renting, with only 9% of households without internet connection at home. We are a diverse community with nationalities from more than 162 countries worldwide. 64% of our residents were born overseas, coming mainly from Jamaica, the Philippines, the United Kingdom, and the United States. 89% of households speak English at home. Of the 11% of persons who speak a language other than English at home, the most common ones are Spanish, Filipino, and Indian languages. With a literacy rate of 98.6%, the Cayman Islands' residents have skills and are resourceful, with 31% holding university degrees and professional designations, and another 22% completed vocational training and associate degrees. The 2021 census results show that job creation in the Cayman Islands is on the rise, increasing by more than 10,200 between 2010 and 2021. There are more than 44,400 active jobs across the Cayman Islands. Nevertheless, our community has some income inequality. The top 20% of households earn more than 45% of total income, while the bottom 20% earn less than 5%. We also have vulnerable communities that need additional support, and over 14% of unemployed citizens receive social welfare assistance. Some people in our community struggle with speaking and hearing, while others have difficulty with everyday tasks. Approximately 139 persons in every 1,000 have a disability. Among our young people, about 5% are not in school or work. More than 33% of households have children, while 1/3 of households are single person living alone. The people of the Cayman Islands are religious, with over 82% of the population affiliated with a religion, and crime is below 2.5% among persons 15 years and older. Find out more about the Cayman Islands Census 2021 report at www.eso.ky.
Recover Personal Injury Attorneys, helping injured people get what they deserve. Did you know that insurance companies have lawyers that represent their interests? Before signing and accepting any settlement, know your rights. Call us today for a free consultation at 924-9999. That's 924-9999. Recover. Your personal injury attorneys are on standby to assist.
Are you tired of overpaying for TV services? Can't figure out VPNs? Constantly missing your favorite TV shows? And no access to the good stuff on streaming services? The frustration is real, but it doesn't have to be. Contact Roque, Cayman Streaming Pros. We'll put you back in the driver's seat in front of your TV. Call, WhatsApp, or message Roque today on 926-1213. Roque is not a TV service provider. Terms and conditions apply. Crichton Properties is one of Cayman's most trusted real estate companies for over 50 years. We offer a diverse selection of property listings and help our clients navigate the world of buying or selling their properties with confidence. Crichton is a name you can trust with our excellent customer service and family-friendly touch. Contact us today to list your home, land, or condo for sale by calling 949-5250 or email info@crichtonproperties.com. Crichton Properties, a trusted Cereba member.
The Cold Hard Truth is Cayman's #1 talk show since it debuted in March 2020. According to independent research, we are the most listened to talk show in 2021, and most people prefer us to any other options on island. We tackle tough issues some days, and other times have fun and lighthearted discussions. But most importantly, the Cold Hard Truth is here for you. Thank you for your support as we continue to be the voice of the people in 2022 and beyond.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I do want to read a few comments, and then we're going to bring our guests back into the studio. So we've got Maya, who says Jamaica is the people's advocate. I think she meant to say Andre, but we got you. His work is admirable, unapologetic, and fearless. Keep up the good work, Andre Stevens. Please get him on the payroll. He deserves it for the work that he's doing. We have another comment here from Sophia. She says, we want our country back. Diaspora wants for come home. Our island is beautiful, and the unruly few is ruining it and making it easy for international takeover. Desi, good morning, says Jamaica is a nice place, but the head of the stream is dirty. Alicia is representing Ghana in the house this morning. So good to have you listening into the program. Dove Joy says some Jamaican mothers are contributing to the crime. Too many kids out there without fathers. Raw Sadness to those countries. It was always there. Veronica, good morning. Says, just as the lady said, excuses and dealings with the truth. Trisha says, very intelligent panel. Ray says, this medium is where the ordinary man can express themselves. Hashtag forward still. Debbie, so good to see you tuned in as usual, Debbie. Debbie says, Sandy, I had no idea there was a male version of you in Jamaica. Andre, I love you, bro. Big up yourself. Nadine is in the house. She says, a blogger is a writer. Exactly. And that was my point. They're writers for traditional newspaper. So they were trying to, again, divide people with foolishness and foolish distinctions in terminology. Miss Barbara has a comment. She says, the crime of the streets is the only thing that comes out. I'm a victim of a supposedly honorable JP in Portland who robbed me of $15,000 US. I bought a lot of land, which he claimed was to have road and electricity connected over 5 years ago. And I'm sure I was not the only one who was duped by this man, as he hides under the pretense of being a respectful JP who funds a few football games. Well, it's my money that is paid for years. Wow. What a hot mess. Jacqueline says, I reached out to social media to assist with my daughter's missing person investigation and was tricked by the police that it's compromising the case just to shut me up. And now my daughter's remain is found and we still are at square one. Jacqueline, what I would say as someone who operates in this space, that a lot of times good can come from shining light on situations. And when you see people not wanting to shine the light on a situation, normally it's because they're not doing their jobs and they're bringing a level of incompetence to the situation. So you must think carefully, because not every situation needs exposure immediately. But when it comes to things like missing persons and crime, that sort of stuff, expose it. Believe me, that has been my experience. Beverly says, yes, a lot of people really believe that their leaders should not be questioned. It's bizarre. Facebook user says, I bet they will want to reach out during election day for these media clowns to help them win. Andre and Cayman, there are people who buy things to ship to their families in Jamaica, and the same Jamaican who do the shipping do not deliver the items, and the police in Cayman say they cannot do anything about it because it's a civil matter. I don't think it's a civil matter. I think that's stealing, and only Cayman Mall Road talked about it. And boy, we've talked about it a few times, and we've even called the man who was shipping the goods. And it's a very, very unfortunate situation, but I think the police should step in. This is one case that I think they need to reevaluate. So Miss Danuel, I think is how your name is pronounced. Forgive me if I got it wrong. Says thousands of poor people will then line up to get the little chump change from the politician. So Jacqueline says they have me back and forth for the funeral homes to collect remains and had me sign then I can't get again, as if they're torturing me. I feel so lost and hurt and depressed. I can't even bury my child, and her husband has since migrated to Canada with my 4 grandkids. And the police told me I couldn't get the remains because the husband has interest in the remains. That's crazy. Natasha says CMR followers need to set up a GoFundMe page to fight when it comes to exposing the truth in court. Darlene, thank you so much. As politicians and other higher ups will go far and do anything to get their way. Cressida makes a good point. Social media changing the game. Let's go ahead and have everybody else come back, because I think that this is a point that is worth discussing. Andre, I'm just going to pull you out 1 second. I see you just walked away. I'll wait till you come back to us. I think you might be grabbing a mic or headset, but this concept of social media being a game changer, since we are talking about the changing face of media, without a doubt, not just social media, but the advent of technology and the way in which we can deliver our shows. So Damien, Jeffrey, and Andre, I'm sure that you're aware, probably even 5 years ago, what we're now doing now in this space where I can pull you in from anywhere in the world. Anyone can join this discussion. This is something that was either impossible 5 or 10 years ago, or much more difficult and much more costly to be able to do. But thanks to internet penetration, thanks to technology, thanks to social media, we now can reach audiences of thousands. We went up to over 400, almost 1,500 people on the live stream alone. We have to accept that we can now reach people beyond our borders. with much greater ease. So can we just talk about that for a minute and how important technology has been in the changing face of media and how it has impacted you as an individual, whether you consider yourself a podcaster, a journalist, a blogger, whatever?
Well, if you guys don't mind me chiming in first, one of the things I've noticed from myself being a talk show host and transitioning more into media management, as a talk show host, as you said, a couple of years ago, this was very, very difficult to do. Not impossible, but very difficult, quite costly. Now people do it on a regular basis. COVID certainly forced some much needed changes in media. We're in the Caribbean in particular, where we were forced to accelerate our transition to digital, right? Because other countries were well on their way, but in the Caribbean region, I think we were lagging behind, and COVID certainly forced us to have to step up our game. It forced internet service providers to provide better internet service, and so those transitions are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. One of the things I saw during COVID was an explosion of podcasting. I mean, everybody started a podcast.
Yeah.
There were podcasts for gardening. There were podcasts for news media. There were literally a podcast for everything, whatever your taste is.
Exactly.
So you saw a decentralization of media.
Yeah, you couldn't even find equipment because, like I said, I was doing a talk show twice a week. The Cold Hard Truth twice a week in the evenings. And so I already had a lot of equipment, but I remember as COVID hit, things like cameras were unavailable on Amazon. All of a sudden you couldn't get what they call these cards, I can't think of the proper name right now, but the cards that you can take a regular camera and connect it to the PC.
Right.
All these things were out of stock or disappearing because, as you said, everyone was trying to stay connected at a time when we were in lockdown, we were in isolation. And the way to do that as easy as possible was to get in front of a camera. We all have mobile phones that can allow us to stream on Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, everybody was here for it. And people were doing all sorts of podcasting shows.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey. Go ahead.
Sandra, when I was living in the Cayman Islands, and first of all, I must say good morning to Dr. Ebanks, Mrs. Eva Tomlinson, Dr. Tomlinson, my two adopted parents over there. You know something, Sandra? When I was living in the Cayman Islands, I remember Dr. T always said to me, Jeffrey, why are you not going to journalism? They always push, even from school days. And when I started this, as a matter of fact, was a friend of mine in Jamaica, Owen Brown, from Roots FM, who called me up one day and said to me, Tavares, every day you talk about what is going on in this country. And, we have some people talk about it, but they're not as passionate as you. Why don't we put you on Roots FM? And I was like, nah, I'm going on there. And he called back and said, no, we want you to come on it. And I went on. And when I went on, I realized that, I started getting people coming on and listening to me. And the Transport Authority called me and said they want to put a program on my show named Make We Talk Transport. And that's how I started. Then I went online and started looking for equipment for podcasts and so forth. But let me say something. Being in this type of work, it allows you to see, it allows you to hear so many things. Because even yesterday, I had the Canadian, Jamaican farm work people on. And I didn't know that they had modern day slavery right now. The Jamaican Canadian farm work program is literally modern day slavery. And the Minister of Labor said there's nothing wrong with where the people are living and where they're working. And when you listen to them, Sandra, your heart is broken. It hurts like hell to know that your own Jamaicans are leaving your country to literally go to modern day slavery in another man's country.
Let me just ask you a quick question, Jeffrey. So what is your background, your professional background?
I am, okay. I had a do a course in ACCA, a chartered accountant.
Okay.
I am also a phlebotomist in the lab. basically that's it.
So that's what you were doing in Cayman
well, I've been doing a lot of things in Cayman with Dr. Tomlinson.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
we heard Damien talk about how he was in, did you say engineering, Damien? So you started out in engineering and people kept telling him, maybe you should become a talk show host, maybe you should think about this. You the medical profession. Andre, how did you get started in the world of media? What were you doing before?
Well, the truth is that I've never had a background in media.
Yes.
I'm a fashion designer. I am a culinary expert. I'm a marketing genius and equally a political strategist. Those are my strengths.
Okay.
Nothing to do with media.
Yes.
However,
it's so interesting. Yes.
here's the story. Surprisingly, one day, I think it would make a year now. I was to go on Fresh Start with Roger Bent and his team. And I was doing a story because today would mark a year that I did my 21 days feeding of the public sector, the frontline workers in Jamaica for 21 days. My restaurant did 100 meals per day. So we choose different hospitals and different clinics, different police stations. So it's either the doctors, the nurses, the porters, and the police who would get meals from my kitchen, my restaurant at the time. And Roger called me and said, hey, Andre, this is a big story. Come on my platform and speak about it. So when I spoke about the...
Go ahead, Andre.
When I spoke about what happened, they said to me, Andre, can you come? So I went on their program and I spoke. And he said, no, Andre, I'm going to now dub you a friend of Fresh Start. So I said, what does that mean? He called me and said, Andre, we have some so increasingly I started to go on the program twice weekly as a guest. And then he popped the question early November and he said, Andre, can you come in to be a host with me for the rest of the year? So from November to December, I was just on radio, just speaking facts, speaking truths, just giving my opinion on things. And at the same time, learning how to be precise, learning how to be sharp and to be witty. And thanks to Sir Roger Bent to guide me, you know them say on the job training. I was on the job training. Sometimes he would be so harsh when, you know, the empty slots come up, the breaks come up, you're chatting too much, to the point. And I'm saying, Roger, give me some. No, I'm saying, no, Andre, you have it to the point. To the point where I continued. January started in February. I had a issue that I was attacked at my home. And the station said to me, Andre, you need to take a break. And then the station started to get letters from the government willing to sue them if I stay on the radio program. So if I could make that impact between October, November, December, January, imagine if I had been on the program up to now. Had I been on the program up to now, can you imagine the colossal, monumental defeat the government would have had? The wicked injustices of this country would have faced. So I am saying to you, that's where a team reached out to me that's called, they're called Image Development Studios. And they said, hey, Andre, we want to start a program on YouTube called Unfiltered, where we're discussing national issues. And I had no problem discussing those issues. And then to the point, somebody said to me, Andre, you need to get on YouTube. And I was saying, I don't need to be on YouTube. And somebody said, with your day-to-day content, Andre, because I lost a lot of streams of income because in COVID, the restaurant started to do poorly and the government attacked me using their their connections and their networks. And I had to come out of my restaurant immediately. And things reached me. I lost significant incomes from last year to now. But have I regretted all? No, I've not regretted.
Yes. I have a saying
Have
here
I
in the
learned?
program. I have a saying here in the program, Andre, that you're right where you're supposed to be. Life's turns and twists and, sometimes seeming disappointments place you right where you are supposed to be in this moment in time. And that is a lesson.
I have put up on my vision board that my restaurant will be an internationally acclaimed restaurant in another 5 years or 10. It will be back on the scenes. I want to be a game changer, not just for politics, but for nation building. A game changer that can see to it that justice is served not for just the man up the top, but the man down bottom. Justice is served for inner city versus uptown. I want to be a game changer, not only for the political scenes, but for teachers or nurses or doctors or policemen. I want to be a game changer for the people living in poverty. I want to be a game changer for you know who I want to be a game changer for? The people who are part of the diaspora in my region. I want to be a game changer like Mia Motley. My icon in the Caribbean presently is Prime Minister Mia Motley.
Oh, yes.
Because when Prime Minister Mia Motley speaks, she speaks for the Caribbean.
Yes.
She doesn't speak just only for Barbadians.
Yeah.
Yes. May I?
Yes.
May I
let me just say one quick thing, Jeffrey, before you jump in. It's so interesting that all of us didn't really start out in a media career, and that's why I wanted to know what Andre was doing, because even me myself, I've kind of had I guess 180 or 360 circular situation, but my life dream was to be an attorney at law. So I grew up in the States. I got my first degree at USF in Tampa, Florida, came back to the Cayman Islands, went to law school, had all these big dreams, went and worked in the corporate environment. And then I went, there was something was wrong. Something didn't feel right with making all this money and seeing so much injustice happening right here in the Cayman Islands around me. So I stepped back and I said, this isn't quite what I want to do. So I went into entrepreneurship, right? Owning my own businesses, sort of like Andre. Did my thing in that space for quite some time, went on to get several other degrees. But the most interesting thing is I started working with the school newspaper at USF when I was a student, but never saw that as a career, never saw that as, oh yes, I'm going to be a writer, 10, 15, 25 years from now. But I want to give a shout out because, Andre talked about how other people were saying to him, you need to be doing this. And this is a lesson for every single person listening to this show. Sometimes people see the vision for you before you see it for yourself. Yes?
Yes, that's so true.
Charles Whitaker, who is Cayman's most popular boxer. He's, I think, the only pro boxer that we've had. For many, many years, we were friends on social media. I've done talk show hosting sort of stints over the years. And he said to me, Sandy, you need to be writing. You need to be doing this, because on my social media page, I was having conversations with people, calling out social injustices. And I was always referring to links from somebody else. You guys know I'm a big advocate of children's rights, women's rights, especially when it comes to those who are abused and sexually molested. And I would always post these articles and agitate for discussion and so on. And Charles would say to me on numerous occasions, why aren't you, you're sharing Cayman News Service's link. Why aren't you writing? Why aren't you bringing these issues to the forefront on your own? Because you're doing it on social media anyway. Right. But why aren't you, why don't you have your own news? And I kept saying to him, no. Like I said no to Charles so many times. I said, no, let her do it. Let somebody else do it. And then one day it came a time when I had to step up to the plate.
Sandra, let me clarify something here. When I was living in the Cayman Islands, I wasn't doing phlebotomy works at all. I was jack of all trade at the hospital. I do everything there. But getting into the whole journalist thing and being a being on radio and so forth. It started from high school. Every Friday, we don't do anything too much on Fridays at school. And every Friday, the principal will leave his office door open with the PA system. And he would say to me, Jeffrey, it's all yours. Just don't do anything out of order and whatever. And I used to go there and play music and, entertain the school and whatever. But I didn't see it that way. And being the president of the student council and public relations officer for the region of student council and so forth, and being in debating contests and everything, it still didn't. I didn't see myself doing this. It's when I leave Cayman and went back home to Jamaica, I was like, no, everything just start get to me. And I used to speak, in my little circle, I used to talk about it. Even when, Dr. Banks may fly back to Jamaica, we talk about what is going on in Jamaica. I did not even see myself same way being on radio until my good friend Owen Brown called me and said to me, no, it's time. And I think being on it, I have a voice where I can speak out for the injustice in my country, what is going on in my country. And a lot of people may dub me as a laborer because of my last name. I'm not. I'm a Jamaican, and Jamaica come first for me. I will not sit down and allow so-called politicians to believe that they can do what they feel like to do in the country and get away with it. Just like the Minister of Misinformation, who comes out and tell the people a whole barrage of lies and get away with it without we even saying anything about it. I heard Andre said that he even get him off. I don't know if it's him. Get him off New Star. The time has come.
But I'm going to say to you, Mr. Tavares, am I happy by what Mr. Morgan did? Of course, I'm happy for what Mr. Morgan has done. Mr. Morgan has not realized that I have no revolution. I've revolutionized how media is working, and the way in which it is going to work is through the ground approach. And if you have the ground approach, you can't go wrong.
Yes.
The truth is, if you go across the length and breadth of Jamaica, when you look at who is the most searched about Jamaican, the top 5 searched about Jamaican, you find Andre Stevens' name in it. If you go on YouTube or any other platform, Andre Stevens is one of the top search names coming out of Jamaica. Am I glad for that? A professor at the University of the West Indies said to me in confidence, they conducted some research over the past 6 months. And if you know, Mr. Stevens, how influential you are, you'll be surprised. And I said, what do you think? They said when they search the algorithms, the views, the viewership are in millions and not double digits million. I'm saying what are you saying? And they're saying, Mr. Stevens, your voice is getting very powerful. Keep on the track. Many of the people, no media house in Jamaica wants to interview me. Let me make that clear.
Hold on, Andre, don't say that. Andre, don't say that. I will interview you.
I'm telling you. No, but what I am saying to you,
yes,
up to today, no media house in Jamaica has ever been willing to talk to me. If I carry a story, the print media never acknowledges Andre carried the story.
No.
If I carry breaking news, they will hear it on my own platform and they will never give me credit.
Right. Wow.
But no. If you hear that I'm in Cayman talking, you're going to hear some of them come now. Andre, can we do an interview with you next week? Can we do an interview with you a few weeks from now? I'm going to take it because it's only a madman not going to take the platform.
Yes.
But you remember they said, a king is never celebrated in this country.
There you go.
Yes, true.
So I understand mentally where I was going at. I know I would be refused by friends and family. When I started my journey, family denounced me because they said they don't want a politician can kill them.
Lord have mercy.
Personally, I have not spoken to my mother from February of this year.
Oh my God.
My mother don't talk to me. My mother denounce me.
Wow.
It hurts. Of course it hurts. But when you see your own denounce you, but I understand the greater good.
Yes.
I understand the greater good. So you're going to see a lot of them running come now, say, hey, I could go interview him, I could go talk to him. Because if him reach a Cayman, him going to reach so I'm going to say this to you.
Yes.
You can't keep a good man down.
Well, you know,
Lord
you know
have mercy.
Sandra?
Yes.
You know something, Sandra?
Can I just say something real quick here, folks? Because this is really, really important. First of all, let me give Andre a mic drop moment. Yes. Let me just say this, right? You have to know, even as an influencer, creator, whatever you want to call yourself, newspaper writer, whatever you want to refer to yourself as, you have to know your influence for yourself and your own worth. And this is one of the reasons why I never paid people no mind, People could say whatever they wanted about Sandy Hill, and I was unbothered. You know why I was unbothered? Because as an educated woman in this space, these people could go out there lying to advertisers. Oh, we're the #1 newspaper and more people watch our morning show, this and that. And I could say, oh, well, did you ask them to show you the independent algorithms from Facebook? And the client would go, well, what does that mean? I said, oh, you don't know that this exists? Let me show you all the power of knowledge. Andre talked about the importance as people of being educated and knowing certain things. So when I could drop this on them and say, right, here is Facebook independently saying, in the last 28 days for this period from February to March, our post that we posted just on Facebook, so not Instagram or anywhere else, reached over 25 million people. We had 3.5, rounded up to 3.6 billion people engaging with that. Now Facebook has gone and changed this, and I'm not too happy with it, but that's okay. Because again, as a woman of knowledge, I know that there's more than one ways to get information. There are more than one ways to skin a cat, right? So Facebook gave you the ability to monitor your competitors right through their page. And this is as a page administrator. So I could sit down and look at all of the newspapers in Cayman. The Compass is only the #1 spot because at the time they had 30.7 thousand page likes. We only had 18.2, but look at the most important field all the way over to the right. Despite having almost half of what the Compass had for page likes at that particular time, we still exceeded them in engagement. You know what that means? That we had 2.6 million people during that week period engaging with her posts, liking her posts, sharing her posts, commenting on her posts, all of that stuff. And for the same weekly period of engagement, the Compass only had 63.6. Keep that in perspective, knowing that they had almost double the number of page likes that we did at that time. Knowledge.
But Sandy, can I just add to what you're saying? This is where knowledge of media metrics is important. And I think a lot of, not just persons within the business world, but the average person really doesn't have a great understanding of how to measure media, how to measure its impact and so forth. And I think for a long time, I'm a data-driven person, right? I like data. Absolutely. I like to see data. And I think Caribbean media houses for a long time have been able to get away with not providing data to advertisers. And even myself, because at one point in time, I was marketing executive for Digicel. And I would ask, media houses, can you provide me with some metrics? And persons would be like, the first thing people would say would, why do you need that? Well, so I can make an informed decision. So I think it's something that we're not used to in the Caribbean, maybe in some countries more so than others. But I know for Turks and Caicos, it's not something we're used to doing.
And what they say about for lack of knowledge. So people, they're entities in your country, in Jamaica, and even the Cayman Islands, who are spending top dollar with newspapers, and they're getting nothing in return for their money. because nobody's really paying attention to them. Nobody's reading. So Andre, from my lips to God's ears, right? On your platform, people are listening, people are paying attention. Trust me, the source of revenue will eventually follow.
Oh, yes.
Trust and believe when I tell you it will come. Yes. I mean, it's so shocking, you know, and I want to thank Tower Marketing, who spent, you know, quite a bit of time doing their research. They do it every single year. They break it down. So here I can go look at male, female, and a lot of this corresponds, quite interestingly enough, with even the information that I can independently view on Facebook. So this isn't stuff that we have to make up in any way, shape, or form. The information is readily available. It's a matter of knowing where it's at, knowing how to use it, and providing it to people.
Sandra, I see where they said high school students is what, 68%?
I think that was that last one. Yes.
Yes. Wow.
Mm-hmm. So that's who our audience is. So this is a consumer profile. So we're in the #1 spot for talk shows, and then this is a consumer profile for who is actually listening to our program. So you know, again, very, very interesting. But we have mostly female, but I think this has changed now that we're on radio. And then we capture a lot of it's almost 50-50 between 18 to 34 and then the 35 to 54. And of course it drops off as someone gets older because we were initially just on social media. I think again, for next year's results, you'll probably see that number go up quite significantly from 8% because people can now listen on traditional radio as well.
May I ask what radio station you're on?
Bobo 89.1 FM.
Global.
So it's one of the DMS stations.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it just launched in March, and we launched our morning talk show in you know, sort of in unison with the station launching.
Wow.
So yeah, so I mean, knowledge is power, folks. Don't let people tell you what your worth is. You know, you have to know your own worth. And in this space, one of the ways, and there's lots of different things that we can look at. That's what I love about Facebook is every single post, they tell you the post engagement, the post reach, everything. So, you know, you don't have to let anybody else try to dictate for you what your value is, even in the space of social media, because you should know what it is. So Andre, I mean, you obviously, you know, pull top numbers here. Stacy says TVJ, CVM, Star, Observer. Andre is on CMR. Are you paying attention in Jamaica this morning, folks? TVJ, all of you, are you paying attention? Andre is on CMR in the Cayman Islands. He's gone regional. He's gone international. He's got people all over the world listening. Professor,
you know, one of my ulterior, not ulterior, one of my missions or one of my dreams is to have a fulsome discussion with Prime Minister Mia Mottley about how as a region I can move the region forward.
Yes.
Because I don't think we have taken advantage of the geopolitical significance of the region. And as the chairman of CARICOM, I believe that she can do a call to action of how the region can move a step forward. We spoke earlier about how we can do a consensus on crime on the region. I think that the issue of food security is a major one that is affecting the region. I believe that's a discussion that we must have. The discussion on environmental degradation that is happening with the region needs to happen as well. Climate change and the issues of morality and socialization and the education of the region. Because what is happening is that we're fast approaching in a technological era and we are not approaching fast enough. And some of the subjects that CXC as our major standardized examination council is, CXC is not really moving with the times. And as a region, we need to look at that. We need to look at whether or not we are doing enough to keep our students in the region competitively advantageous.
Because and also our teachers.
And our teachers. So there is an issue of the education crisis that is happening with the region that we need to discuss. The children in China are big on coding. Are we doing a lot more coding? The metaverse and all of those things are big discussions that are happening. Are we doing enough in terms of being involved in the metaverse? Those are discussions that we need to be open to.
Andre,
so,
can I add to what you're saying? And I want you and Jeffrey to comment on this, right? Because I get attacked often for saying it in TCI. I think the region is overcommitted to tourism, right?
Yes.
And I say this from an investment perspective. And a lot of times you get tourism players that will come out, oh, how can you say that tourism is providing us with so much? I am not arguing that tourism is providing us with anything. I'm not arguing against that. It's a fact, right? But in terms of where we're invested, I think we're overcommitted to tourism. If you look at a country like Turks and Caicos, we're a one-legged economy. 85% of our GDP is from tourism, with another 9% from financial services. I think the region needs to start looking at how we can develop, and maybe this has to come on a regional level. If we collectively, the entire region's population is the size of the United Kingdom, I mean, we can come up with other industries. I think tourism. Hold on 1 second, Jeffrey. Let me just finish this. I think tourism, in my opinion, and a lot of persons hate when I say it, is too often for me currently structured similar to the plantation economy, right? Where you have foreign European absentee ownership, mainly. You have mixed race or white management, and then you have black workers. Now, some people will say that's simply because you're in a black region of the world. Maybe, but how are governments transitioning the people of their countries to start thinking about industry ownership, right? And this is what I keep getting at. We don't own our industry. Somebody else owns it. The majority of this industry gets exported somewhere else. Statistics from the World Bank and other global institutions show you that countries that are heavily tourism dependent has a majority of their economy exported somewhere else. Why? Because tourism in this region is based on foreign direct investment, where yes, an investor is going to come in and invest $500 million, but once they do, once there starts to be generation of significant profit, they get exported somewhere else. So when we say, oh, we have a $10 billion economy, and people say, well, I'm not feeling it, you can't feel it if you're not retaining the money.
So in other words, we're having a drain on the Caribbean.
In the long term, in the short term, it's nice, but long term tourism tends to take more money out of your economy. I'm not saying that tourism isn't beneficial and it hasn't provided us with a good living.
It has not been. No, it has not been. I'm going to say to you, if you look at the tourism index and the tourism resilience report that is happening right now, where in Jamaica they have the ambassador, I think of the UN here discussing the resilience of the tourism product.
It's fickle.
The Caribbean has not touched the impact of tourism the right way. It has been the investors who have benefited.
Because
it has been the investors who have benefited. Again, the colonial masters who have benefited from the tourism product.
Yes.
Have you looked at the hotels? In the hotels, the middle management and upper tier management are not Caribbean nationals.
Mixed race.
Have you looked? Do they have pension plans? Do they have pension plans for the tourism workers? They don't have pension plans for the tourism workers. Do they have housing solutions for the tourism workers? No, they don't have housing solutions for the tourism workers. So the tourism product has only benefited who? Those who are our former colonial masters.
And it's a shame.
That is really the discussion today. That is really the discussion today. Do we have the second day modern day slavery happening in the region that comes under the guise of trade and partnership? Has trade and partnership, has foreign direct investments been a new form of modern day slavery? If we look at the BPO sector in our country, that's a discussion.
We have a caller who is patiently waiting on the line. Good morning, caller, and welcome to the program.
Morning again.
Hi, Danny.
In the past, the UK told the Cayman Islands that we should focus on tourism and leave finance to them. But how are we going to focus on tourism if we don't have finance?
Well, I think
borrow from them and be indebted to them.
Well, and you see
wait a second. Wait a second. What was being said there about slavery is true. Slavery didn't end. It just changed its appearance. And if you're indebted to those who want to be your financial masters, you can go ahead. But if you think that's going to lead to your prosperity, you're sadly mistaken. And I think that is, I'm not sure if you remember, Sandra, when that statement was made in our past, but it was said by the then leader of government business, Mickey Bush. He went to the UK, they had a meeting, and that's what they told him. And they're still pushing that agenda. They want to be the ones to whom you borrow money and pay interest. They don't want you to hold significant positions or any say in what happens in the finance of the world. And I think it would be a sad mistake for Cayman to be so dependent on tourism and lose sight of the more lucrative parts of industry. Because when you're a tourist economy, all they have to do is spread one little rumor and you're gone. Okay? And yes, I'm saying that, yes, they would do that to us because they are our competitors.
Not only that, Denny, but as you can see during the pandemic and the lockdown, the nations, especially the Caribbean nations that relied almost 100% on tourism, although it might not have been the right time to reopen, they had to force their borders open a lot quicker because they had no choice. Cayman has a little bit of a diversification, so the financial services was able to carry us to some extent.
I agree.
And those are the realities.
The comments being made by your guests saying, questioning whether we should be focusing on programming and other aspects. That's correct. Yes, we should. That is the new world.
Yep. Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, my dear.
Sandra, it is hard for us as a people and as Caribbean people to sit down. If the powers may be in our country don't listen to us, they believe they know everything. Because if a Jeffrey Tavares and Andre Stevens decide to write what should I say now? I wouldn't say an encyclopedia, but a tragedy, and put it towards the Jamaican government, they wouldn't listen to us. Because we're not of the Harvard and the Cambridge and the this and the that. There comes the time when we must look into ourselves and ask ourselves the question what Andre said a while ago. Tourism is not the answer to the Caribbean. We got to educate our people.
Our economies.
Right. We got to educate our people to come up with Ian Musk or a Warren Buffett or somebody who has the wherewithal to say, okay, I can build a platform. I can invent a Restream or a StreamYard.
But Jeffrey, that's not what we're telling our people. We're telling our people focus on tourism. I mean, our governments have bought into the idea that that is the way to go.
Yes.
Because look at Jamaica, for example. We have so many hotels in this country. Yet, is there a Jamaican manager in there? Very few. As the hotels are owned by Jamaicans, very few. Look at Negril. Negril has been the tourism mecca for Jamaica for years. And Negril is a disgrace. The western strip of Negril is a disgrace. I remember growing up in Negril, where my parents, my grandparents used to come out of their houses and give to the hippie. Because the hippie come down to Jamaica for the ganja, the marijuana. And then nothing again, we are losing out on the marijuana industry in the Caribbean.
Wow.
Jamaica is losing out on the marijuana industry.
Of all the things that you would think Jamaicans would be leaders in,
thank you, because
would be the cultivation and growth and distribution of marijuana.
Look at this, Sandra. Back in the days in Orange Hill and in Mount Airy and wherever, it was a lower man planting ganja, and they come down and burn it down. Now they want to legalize ganja, and who don't want to put as president for the Ganja Growers Association in Jamaica? Some former politician who knows nothing about growing ganja. He was in it, telling them to burn down the ganja, locking up people and all those things.
Wow.
So there is something fundamentally wrong with the way we govern and the way we think in this country.
And I hate to tell you, but it seems like it's not even country specific, because we struggle with a lot of those same issues here in the Cayman Islands as well. When we look at, the biggest and best hotels and, no Caymanian ownership, no Caymanian management, the most you can hope for is oftentimes to be a housekeeper, because most of the workers in the front line, again, are imported workers. So we have a bit of a running joke here where we have people coming to visit, tourists coming to visit, and sometimes they'll say, "Oh, wow, you're the first Caymanian that I've seen. I've been here for 3, 4, 5 days." And it's like, what? Are you kidding? I mean, Caymanians should be the face of even tourism, and that isn't necessarily happening.
Sandy, we have the same problem in Turks and Caicos. The exact same problem in Turks and Caicos. Wow. I've had tours. This is personally, I've had tourists come to me and say, "Are you from here? Do you speak English?" Right? And my issue isn't whether or not people speak English. My issue is the fact that they simply ask, "Am I from here?" So that tells you everything you need to know about their experience coming to Turks and Caicos.
Lord,
right?
Have mercy.
And I'm not saying that our people, we're one of the few countries in the region that's probably underpopulated. If you look at our population and look at the percentages of locals versus expatriates, we're significantly tiny percentage of our own population, right? So there's no way we could fill every.
Cayman Islands,
there's no way we could fill every job. But my issue is, okay, fine, we can't fill every job, but why are we not looking more towards teaching our people about ownership in management rather than saying, be a chef? I'm not saying you shouldn't be a chef if you want. If you love culinary arts, do it. Whatever you want to do it. But don't tell me I can't own it. I literally I lived in the UK for a while, right? When I went to university, and coming back from university after finishing my communications and media degree, I went to the labor department to, see if I could find employment. Literally, they said, "Damien, you're qualified to be director of communications." I said, "Okay." You know what they said to me? The only jobs we have are in the hotel industry, and the expatriates aren't going to let you get that position. And I'm thinking to myself, this is my Department of Labor, my country, telling me that someone else that comes from the outside is not going to allow me to get a position that I'm qualified for, despite it is their job make sure that I get the position. This is not unique to Turks and Caicos.
I mean, listen, I need that to sink in, because I know the same thing is happening in this country. I don't know if it's quite as overt as that, but I mean, it is shocking. How did we lose control? Listen, we're in a little bit of overtime. Thank you to Chuck on the back end at the radio station who has, indulged me a little bit to go into overtime. But I do know that our guests are also very, very busy individuals, and they have other commitments throughout the day. So we do want to start to wrap things up this morning. So first of all, I saw a lot of you saying we need more of this conversation. For years now, we've had a segment here called Caribbean Connection Wednesdays, and every single Wednesday. And it's often difficult to get people to come on within the region. You know, everybody's busy doing their own thing or whatever. But I'm always for pushing the conversation regionally, internationally. You know, here in CMR, we will bring in guests from anywhere in the world because we don't have all the answers and we can learn from each other. We have, I think, as human beings, you know, a collective experience that can be shared. So there are people halfway around the world in Europe that can teach Caribbean people a thing or two about education. Someone was sending me a message on WhatsApp that said, as it comes to education, they said, the note on education, the CXC board has confirmed that only 37% of the children in the entire region have passed math in the June 2022 sitting. Folks, let that sit in for a moment. 37% have passed math. How can we talk about other industries? How can we talk about technology and all these other industries when 37% of our people in the Caribbean are passing math? That's a problem. That is a serious indictment on us as a people and on the education system. So
that's something I believe. Honestly, I believe that discussion needs a fulsome discussion.
Oh, yeah.
If we start that now, I honestly believe
we're not.
Should be
Listen, there's so many discussions that we need, and that was the whole point of Caribbean Connection Wednesdays. And we can focus on particular areas that really need to be picked apart and given, you know, a bit more in-depth analysis. Education is a whole, oh gosh, that could take multiple discussions. And a lot of times we have to circle back to things. And Anthony says, education, education, education. You know, and I do feel like we have dropped the ball in a number of different areas. But folks, first of all, I want to thank my guests. I know Ron had to leave a little bit early, but thank you guys so much for joining us. You must have thought, I don't even know what you thought, Andre, when I first reached out. You must have been like, who is this woman messaging me from the Cayman Islands? I don't know her. But I want to thank you and give you an opportunity for some final comments. You know, CMR is, you know, we extend our warm Caymanian kind, you know, arms to you to always come on the platform, and anything that we can do to help further the messages that you have and educate our people, we're more than happy to be about that life. So some thoughts, Andre, from you?
As I'm ending and wrapping up, thanks to Cayman Mall Road for having me here today. It was definitely a pleasure having a fulsome discussion on the way forward and the new face of media. But I'll challenge people today. If you see something that is injustice, that little one video can become viral in 1 second if it goes into the right hand.
Yes.
That one video can either make, break, build, or doom society. Get with the times, get with technology. With the times and technology, the truth be told, I don't like technology. That's one of my fears. My team can tell you that I don't like new things because to me, it is just too hard.
Oh, gosh.
But does it work? It works. Do I benefit? Of course it benefits. I'm in Cayman now. Had it not been for technology, I wouldn't have been here today. Had it not been for technology, we would not be interconnected on the different issues that are affecting us.
Absolutely.
The issues of crime affecting those in the BVI and those in Turks and Caicos is an issue that probably they can learn from us how to deal with that issue before it becomes a major sore. How to eliminate the people who are the problem in the Turks and Caicos, who are making the crimes happen. So I'm going to say to you, you all play a part in the media circus across the region. You all play a part in putting that one dot. That one dot can solve the puzzle because somebody sees something, somebody knows something.
Yes, absolutely.
And with the new face of media, the media circus, you can't take the video and nobody knows it's you. because we're all in this space to protect you. Because you have some who are gorillas, some who are lions, some who are cats, and some who are dogs, and certainly some who are sharks. So it all depends on what is given to us and how we can use it to the benefit of the media platform.
Absolutely.
So thank you all for having me here today. And I look forward being back soon. And anytime, once I'm available, I will make my voice heard. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much. And, just to comment briefly on what Andre said, sometimes people will label you with a desire to somehow bring you down, but he just took ownership of them calling it a media circus. Yes, we will be part of the circus. And we're going to be, as he said, all of the animals in the circus that actually make the circus work. So don't allow people's words that they choose to put on top of you to have any real power of you. You can take ownership of it and twist it and turn it and make it into something positive. Make it your own. You don't give them the power by them, whether or not they want to call you a blogger and think that that's an insult. This is what I used to say. Oh, I'm a blogger. Great. Good for you. Still #1 in the Cayman Islands, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? So take ownership, folks, of what you're bringing to the table. And so on that, Damien, some comments from you today. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, firstly, Sandy, I want to say thanks to you and your audience and everybody at, Cayman Mile Road for having me. I definitely believe that a lot of things we touched on, because we touched on a range of topics, need much deeper discussion, much more time than we have for. And how media relates to all of these things. People don't understand that, we, the media, we help to build democracy. That is our job. Our job is to hold the powerful to account. And so we need the support of the public. We need the support of governments. We need people to see us as partners in building democracy. And that is one of the key things I want to get across today, is that we hold power to account as individuals and as organizations. I don't want to just leave it to the media, but the public has a role to play in it. And to add to a lot of what we said today, one of my favorite politicians, Tony Benn, he's a former British Labour MP that died a few years ago. Tony Benn said, to hold any society, to control any society, you only need to control 3 things, right? Access to education, access to finances, and access to healthcare. And if you can control those 3 things, you control any society. And I ask us as Caribbean people, do we control access to finances in our region? Do we control access to education? Do we control access to healthcare? And you'll find oftentimes when we look as to who actually own these things, it's not us. And we wonder why our politicians aren't working for us. It's because we don't control any of those things. And it's because leadership is looking out for themselves rather than looking out for their people.
And Damien, so I think we could add a 4th one, access to media.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very powerful.
Information. I am an advocate of the freedom of information, So far, all governments have done is come up with excuses why we can't have it. Despite it being in our constitution. I've just heard nothing but excuses why they can't move forward with it. Okay, so now we know why you can't move forward with it. Tell me how you plan to make it happen. Because your politician isn't any smarter than you. They just have more information than you. That's the only difference. You're not more intelligent.
Sometimes they don't even have that. Sometimes we're telling the politicians what's going on. So
yeah, and so I just want to leave people with those things to ponder, and from the education perspective. I mean, I have a son that's heading to university tomorrow, and when we were in the UK, what he was doing and this goes back to Andre's point, what he was doing in terms of education. We had him going to a sports college, and which is basically high school, but he was doing robotics and programming and learning second languages and those sorts of things, completely different curriculum. And so he didn't want to come back home to the Caribbean where, you know, he saw the curriculum as being not for the future, not for his generation. And that is something that we really do have to look at in the Caribbean. Are we giving our children the right education for the future economy, which is a knowledge-built economy?
Wow. Jeffrey, some final thoughts from you this morning?
First, I must say thanks to you once again, Sandra, for having me on. This is not my first time being on your podcast, you know, and I must say thanks to the people of the Cayman Islands for the many years that I have, you know, lived in the Cayman Islands. Thanks to them very much for having me there. You know, I remember Dr. Ebanks said something to me one time, that, you know, we must let people know that we come here by labor pay, not by aeroplane. In other words, if you're from the British Virgin Islands, or you're from Cayman, or you're from Jamaica, when you have expats come into your country and believe that they can take over and go on the most way with you, tell them point blank, I come here by labor pay and you come here by aeroplane. And, you know, I'm saying this to say this, that we in Jamaica, we in the Cayman Islands, and all over the Caribbean, we need a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And a government of the favorite few, a government who we can hold accountable. Yes. A government who they believe that they have the power, but no, we have the power. We the people. In Ronald Reagan's final speech to the American people, he speaks about we the people. We the people have the power to do what we can do. We the people must stand up against injustice, must stand up against human trafficking, must stand up against the Jamaica labor force, stand up against the Ministry of Labor, who continue putting our Jamaicans in modern day slavery in these farm work programs. And like as if they don't know about it. This has been going on since 1966. The Jamaican government signed on to the Canadian government for farm work programs. And the people are put into modern day slavery. And before they even leave Jamaica, the first modern day slavery start, where they strip the ladies them naked, right there in the Ministry of Labor, to test them out. Same thing with the men, strip them naked. And we have a Minister of Labor, Carl Samuda, who said he knows nothing about what is going on. He doesn't see any modern day, he doesn't see any you know, injustice being played out to the Jamaicans. I say to you, as Caribbean people, stand up for your God-given right. Read your constitution. Know your right. Jamaica passed the fundamental Charter of Human Rights. I encourage every one of you, go out there and read it. And for my fellow Caymanians, do not give up. Stand up for the Cayman you believe in. Stand up for the Cayman that you want your children to live in. Because if we do not stand up for our country, then there won't be a future for our generation to come. Sandra, thank you so much. And if you all want to hear me on a Tuesday, just go to Make We Talk, Jeffrey Tavares YouTube channel. I'm on a Tuesday, and I'm also on a Sunday. On Tuesdays from 11 to 12, or from 12 to 1 p.m. US time. On Sundays, it varies from about 6 in the evening to 7 o'clock.
And Damien, let people know how and when they can find you as well. And then we'll have Andre let people know as well.
Well, I was just going to say I've moved away more from frontline media in terms of being on air. I'm only on air now, usually as a panelist or in news situations. But they can find our radio station, RTC 89.1 FM, at www.rtc89fm.com. And we have a live stream there. We're also on Facebook, RTC Station on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay, very good. Andre, I think most people know where to find you, but just in case.
Well, to those who are in Grand Cayman, you can find me on YouTube.
And
on
the
YouTube.
last thing I'll say is shout out to all of my friends and family over there in Jamaica, because I do have relatives in Jamaica. I have friends in Cayman and BVI. So much love to you guys.
Wonderful. Yes, Andre, you were saying that we can find
So,
you.
So you can find me on YouTube. I'm there every night, Mondays. The only time I'm not there is on a Saturday, but I'm on at 8 p.m. every night. I am Andre Stevens. You can find me on Facebook at Andre Popsido Stevens. That's my public profile. And you can surely find me on Instagram as I am Andre Stevens. My number to call if you need to talk to me is 876-865-4587. 876-865-4587. You can call me. I might not respond the same time, but you'll definitely get a response because I have near like 2,000, 3,000 messages to respond to sometimes and a lot of more calls. But blessings to you all. Thanks again. And as my hashtag is forward still, it's Jehovah's will. So forward still Jamaica, forward still Grand Cayman, forward still to the Turks and Caicos, forward still to the British Virgin Islands, and forward still to the Caribbean. For Jamaica and the Caribbean will be greater when forces are aligned and forged. Be blessed. Wonderful. Thanks again, and walk good.
Forward still. I love it. So folks, thank you guys so much for joining us this morning. We're here every morning at 7:30, Monday through Friday. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook simulcasting. We're also on Bobo 89.1 FM as well, which is a DMS station. So if you can find it online as well as you can listen on traditional radio. And I just want to say that I appreciate these gentlemen as well as Ron, who had to leave us a little bit early, joining the program today, taking time out of their busy schedules to share a little bit about their own journeys personally and as a country in this whole world of the space of media. Media can be defined as very, very broad, folks. But what I love about it is the fact that I think the face of media has changed. The message that the media is bringing to the people has also changed. It's really about being grassroots and having a level of activism that we didn't necessarily had before. So this isn't someone, sitting behind a computer screen or, just, an old time typewriter trying to type up a news story. We are interacting with people. Andre just gave you his WhatsApp number. Most people in the Cayman Islands know how to reach me by WhatsApp. I constantly have Miss Stacy, who's from Jamaica. She helps in my household management, right? Her title should be household manager. And she always jokes and says to me, because the second I get off the show, my phone is blowing up. She always says, Sandy, I think you get more calls and requests from people than the premier of the Cayman Islands. And, jokingly, I take the point because people see us in the space of media and they understand that we can bring important topics to the fore and that people will listen and people will pay attention as a result of that. And that's our job, is to speak the truth, tell the truth, engage with truth telling. And if you have a problem, we're all about, I'm a very solutions driven person. So ultimately I try to use this platform to bring solutions to the people of the Cayman Islands and hopefully beyond. We've had Caribbean Connection Wednesdays for a minute now, folks. And we hope to continue and to grow just strength to strength in terms of that. I just wanted to say one word of encouragement to everyone who's in this space. So Andre, especially to you, you made mention that you've lost support from family and others in your life, and they will come around. I have been so incredibly fortunate because I always say this, sometimes people don't see the vision, they don't see the dream, and they don't understand it, but you have to continue to forge the way forward and do what you must do. This is your calling. And at some point, those people will come around and you just have to believe that. And I personally, in my journey, have had all sorts of opposition. And I wanted to thank the one person who, my husband, Marlon, hail up to everybody who might be from St. Mary listening this morning. He didn't always understand the vision and he didn't always get it, but he knew and understood me and supported me. And that was the most important thing. So even I remember when I first started to do the evening show, he said, oh, now this is going to take time away for the family, because he's a family man, family first. He's like, oh, in the evenings, this is going to take time away from me and Gigi. Well, you want to do an evening show? Why? So, he didn't always, and I had to kind of push a little bit, there's a push and pull. And I said, you got to believe me that this is what this country needs. He didn't understand or see the vision, but he still gave me the support that I needed. So folks, there might be people in your lives. It mightn't be media. It might be something else that they have a dream that they're trying to accomplish and they want to do something. And for whatever reason, maybe it's not financially viable right now. Maybe it takes a little bit of time away from your family. Support your loved ones and the things that they want to do, right? Because it comes full circle in the way that it just seems to work itself out. And you are right where you're supposed to be. Continue moving forward. Strive every single day for better and bigger things. We all have goals personally and professionally that we wish to accomplish. Those things can be achieved. Don't do wrong by people. In your truth, try to do the right thing. Speak the truth. Help people along the way. And you'd be surprised at what the outcome would be. So again, thank you all so much for joining us today. We're here every single morning. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Tomorrow's Thursday. We've got some government officials coming in the program. We're going to be talking about some consumer issues. So on Thursday, we try to focus on protecting the people in this country because there's so many people, businesses and others who are willing to take advantage of you because they see you as a small man, as a small person, and they don't believe that you have a voice, but you have a voice. You have a voice. You have a voice through Andre. You have a voice through Jeffrey, and you have a voice through Damien, and you have a voice through Ron, and you definitely have a voice through CMR here. And Sandy will be your voice. So there's a lot of times I'm picking up the phone calling wrongdoers saying, can we get that $1,000 refunded that you took? Because $1,000 CI is a lot of money and it's hard to come by. And that poor little Filipino man in the Philippines who just sent you that money and you promised you were going to take out a work permit for him and you haven't done so, you need to return his money or we're going to feature you on CMR. Yeah? Collectively, we have the power in our collective voices. So again, big thank you to all of our guests. Thank you to all of you, the viewers and participants today who popped into the program. At one point, I think we got close to 1,500 people on the live streams. I know that all of you were engaged and I love it. #ForwardStill, and that's what we do. You guys have an absolutely wonderful and beautiful day and please be safe and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you too, Sandy. Thanks much.
Bless up, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care, Sandy.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels and visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.